Caucus, who spoke earlier today. The reality is, as you know, Eva, because we were live on the air with you, we pressed Andy Harris repeatedly. What are the examples of some of the concessions you got out of the White House? He said he would not answer that. I asked him, I think 3 times live on the air with you, did you get these agreements in writing? And he also wouldn't answer that.
Yeah, I heard you repeatedly asking, did you get them in writing? So do we have any idea what these agreements are?
We don't. Andy Harris wouldn't answer that. I've been pinging some sources. I mean,
Okay, I think it should all be working now.
By the end of the day, but right now the Freedom Caucus being
that sucks. I was hoping that I'd be able to stream in 1440p
drawing the ire of some of
on Twitch.
Who were not holdouts, who were always going to vote.
Maybe I can play with that later, but
the outsized power that the Freedom Caucus has to hem and haw and draw out this process, have these overnight, late into the night marathon voting.
You guys are all back,
like we saw last night, because they want to.
Let me just see if it's working on YouTube now.
Words of some of their colleagues who have talked to me, cave.
Yeah, I saw you really pressing him on that. The most that he would give you is that the people would see some of that as it started to unfold. Selena, I'm curious what we are hearing from the White House and when exactly the president's going to sign this bill.
Well, first of all, I just want to go back to that conversation you were having with Jay there about what exactly these holdouts got in return. Well, I was just on a call with senior White House officials, and they were asked about what kind of concessions they gave to the holdouts. And they said this was more about interpretation and implementation. But again, these holdouts didn't get any changes to this bill to go from a no vote into a yes vote. But look, the president is seeing this as a huge victory. This is possibly the most consequential piece of legislation that he is going to sign for the rest of his term. It is full of his campaign promises, and the White House says that he's going to be having a bill signing ceremony tomorrow here at the White House at 5 p.m. So just in time for the president's deadline of July 4th. This was
see if it's just working on YouTube.
Deadline.
I don't care really.
To get here, White House officials telling me that it took a lot of personal negotiation and arm twisting from the president to get this bill across the finish line. But again, the president is celebrating this a huge win for the president in his second term.
Yeah, this was something that was very important to the president. Jay, what's the reaction?
I don't know what's going on with it.
Look, Democrats tried to forestall this vote as long as they can. It's why Jeffries broke that record that was previously set by Kevin McCarthy for the longest floor speech, speaking for 8 hours, 44 minutes. Was pushed back on it ceremonially, which Jeffries did by reading on the floor anecdotes. He says,
what is the Alligator Alcatraz thing? It's basically a detention center for illegal immigrants that they store them in.
Repeatedly, especially
we'll go over that. It's basically just a facility that they built to store illegal immigrants, or people that are being accused of being illegal immigrants.
In modern American history,
It looks honestly like pictures from Auschwitz.
This is the largest withdrawal and ending of healthcare in American history. There has to
Let me show you some pictures.
And we have to decide if this is just a joke or just for TV or if this is our real lives.
So look, Democrats saying they're going to run
This
on
is it
this
here.
bill in the midterms, but Republicans saying
It was basically just buildings that have been quickly built, chain link fencing and beds.
Jay O'Brien, Selena Wang, thank you both.
It's in the swamplands, yeah. But apparently this was built in just a matter of like days, and it holds like thousands and thousands of people.
For more now, let's bring in Democratic Congressman Greg Stanton of Arizona. Congressman, thank you so much for being with us. I know you voted against this bill as well.
They're tents, yeah. They're not even solid walls. It's in a very muggy area.
You posted on social media
I'm
that you'd heard from countless
not even sure that there would be
constituents
air
who rely on
conditioning there. It was probably pretty
What do you say
inhumane, to
them
be
now
honest.
that the bill has passed?
Well, we're going to fight like heck to undo this. Look, the more the American people learn
How do you
about
fight
this
like
bill,
heck to
the less
undo
they
it?
like it. You see poll after poll that show that this bill is significantly underwater, and it's for a very simple reason. The American people do not want to rip away health care from themselves, their family members, their neighbors, their co-workers. The Republican Party.
Like, how do you actually undo it? It's passed now, right?
Replace rhetoric as it relates to the Affordable Care Act, and they got walloped in the 2018 elections. Oh, by the way, that was the election right after the original Trump tax plan went into place. So the American people, they've been there before. They don't like it, and they're not going to like it again in this upcoming election. I think the American people are going to speak loud and clear in the upcoming elections.
Earlier on ABC News Live here, our Diane Macedo interviewed House Republican Conference Chair Lisa McClain about this bill. Here's some of what she had to say about it.
Right? We want to make sure we get rid of waste, fraud, and abuse, dual enrollment. We want to make sure that we can give able-bodied people
Pretty
the
fucking,
ability to work to make sure that Medicaid is there for the people who need it most, and that's exactly what we're doing. So, unlike the
Pretty
Democrats,
a
who
little
have
bit
to
reminiscent
fearmonger
of something
because
that
they have no
happened
plan,
last
no vision,
century,
and
early
no
in last
leader,
century, to be
don't let
honest,
the
like
facts
how
get in
much
the way of a good story.
hatred there is.
Your
Although,
reaction, your take on this.
you know, I don't.
Well, that's wishful thinking on our
I don't
part.
know.
The reality is that
I
this
do
bill
think people
cuts $1
should
trillion
need to try
out
to
of
come into the
Medicaid.
country
and so for Congresswoman McClain,
legally.
I just say the math ain't mathin' on that. Let me give you a
But if
perfect
they're not
example.
doing,
in Arizona,
like,
we do have work
anything
requirements
illegal
already.
per
And
se.
Our governor just came out and said the state will not be able to replace this lost revenue, which means significantly less health care for the people of Arizona, and major health institutions, particularly rural hospitals, will inevitably have to close because of the cuts made under
Beyond
this
fear and
bill.
anger, it is
So
it
they can
is
use
it
that
is evil.
rhetoric
But
if they want,
I mean,
but the
I
truth is going to come to the surface very soon that at $1 trillion in cuts,
it's almost
you
hard
are
to believe that
ripping
that
away
it would
healthcare
actually
from
happen,
American
right?
families. You are hurting rural hospitals, and when you lose a rural hospital, you don't just lose it for the Medicaid patients for that hospital, you lose it for the entire community. And virtually all of those rural hospitals are in Republican districts. The American people are really smart. The last time the Republicans tried to do this, they got walloped in the 2018 elections. They're doing it again, and the American people know exactly what they're trying to do, and they will be punished. The Republicans are going to be punished in the upcoming elections.
I'm curious, though, because you talk about the midterm elections that are coming up. It appears that a lot of these things are not going to go into place until after the
Within 10
midterms.
years, you'll maybe
So
have functioning
as
a
a
rail
Democrat,
network
how do you
again, but it'll
guys
have all these kind of
capitalize on
camps
that,
as their final.
before the American public is really
Yes, man.
seeing what this looks like?
You know what's even
American
even
people are very
more
smart, so
psycho
they
is
know
the fact
exactly
that they
what the
are
Republicans are
deporting
trying
these
to do
people
with
to
this
third,
bill.
like
But
a third
unfortunately,
country
you're
or
right,
another
they did engage in
country,
some
just
trickery
like the
with regard
Germans
to the
did with
timing. They give
Auschwitz.
away
Like
these massive
the
tax cuts
similarities
to
are
the
just
wealthiest Americans and
crazy.
largest corporations immediately.
You're not just
and then
deporting
try
them back to their own
hide the
country. They're
impact
sending them to
of
like.
the inevitable ripping away of healthcare.
If they were
from the
deporting them
American people
back to
until
their own
after the
country, I'd be like,
election.
okay,
Guess what that
whatever. You know, the
does?
person
That
was here
balloons the
illegally.
deficit.
If I went
We
to the
know
U.S.
that they had
illegally
to
and
do
was
a
living
$5
there and got
trillion
caught, I'd
increase
expect that I'd
in
be
the
sent back to
American
Canada.
debt limit as a result of
But
this,
I mean, they're
result of
deporting them
this
to like
bill.
places like
We
El
know that's
Salvador
gonna
and stuff like
increase
that,
the
right? Like
cost of debt financing when they have
Pretty
to take
nuts.
on that new debt borrowing. So that's going to have a devastating impact. The cost of debt is going to go up. It's going to squeeze out so many other priorities. We know this bill is going to have a devastating impact on Medicare because when you raise the deficit to these levels, it kicks in automatic sequestration, which directly impacts Medicare to the tune of $500 billion. There's going to be cascading impact, negative impact after negative impact. So whether they try to hide it through budget trickery and do it right after the 26 elections, they are underestimating the intelligence of the American people, the American voters. They're going to be punished in this election just like they were in 2018.
Are you at all concerned, though, that the voters are going to look at everyone who's currently there and go, why aren't you doing more to get things done?
how deep this gets, even when he's out of office, it will be much a lot of work to reverse everything that is happening.
You've got to do even more. It's the exact reason why House Democrats
gotta-
formed
I
a
mean,
litigation group in which we are directly involved.
Will the
in
Republicans
litigation
win
against
again?
this
Like,
president every time
they barely
he acts
won
beyond
this
the
election.
boundaries of his office. He thinks he is an authoritarian. He wants to be a king. We have an obligation, American people, not to let that happen. The founding fathers.
I wonder how
wanted
fast
equal
a new
branches of
government would unravel
and
things.
we are in the fight, engaging in that to push back against this president who thinks he can run roughshod over both Congress and the judiciary.
Congressman Greg Stanton, thank you so much for being
Thank you
with
so
us
much.
today. And we're getting a new read on the state of economy. The U.S. added 147,000 jobs in June, better than what analysts were expecting. The unemployment rate also ticking down to 4.1%, a near historic low. Those numbers surprising.
People are
because
intelligent; they will
show a
feel this is the
strong
midterms,
job
but
market
will they
despite
really? Hard to
uncertainty
judge when I
over
don't
President Trump's tariffs.
Boots on the
Our
ground.
business correspondent
This
Alexis
happened
Christophorous
in
has all the details.
Trump's last presidency, didn't he?
Eva,
Didn't
the
it?
job market remains
He lost the
surprisingly
midterms like in a major
resilient,
way.
defying expectations for a slowdown in the job market. A lot of economists were expecting that companies would tighten their belts and not expand their payrolls, but instead we saw just the opposite. You know, there's all this uncertainty around trade policy and immigration policy, but we continue to add jobs at a faster clip than expected for the fourth month in a row. So here we had 147,000 jobs added, more than the 110,000 Wall Street was looking for. The unemployment rate dipped a bit to 4.1%. And it's important to also highlight here that the previous 2 months, so April and May, those job numbers were revised higher. So actually 16,000 more jobs were added.
It'll be interesting.
In
we
those
were
months
looking
than
at this
previously
the other
expected.
day.
Where were the
Hold
jobs
on.
added? Well, government, surprisingly.
Where are we here? The inflation
73,000
rate.
jobs added for local
The,
and state governments, especially in the area
This
of
is the U.S.
education.
inflation rate. It
Federal
will be
jobs that
interesting to
saw
see
a
what
loss of
happens.
about
I think it's in
7,000.
like
Again,
12
that's because
days
of the ongoing
when the
cuts
next
we
report
saw
comes
due
out.
to, the
Last
Department of
updated. Next
Efficiency,
release is July the
under
15th.
Elon Musk.
Yeah,
What
in
does all
12
of this
days,
mean
it'll be
for the
interesting to
Federal
see if this
Reserve and
spikes
its
up a little
upcoming
bit because
meeting
of
on
tariffs,
interest
or
rates?
if it stays the
Economists
same.
are saying this
That's going to be a
stronger-than-expected
big,
report basically buys
like
the
a
Fed
big
time
report.
to continue with its wait-and-see approach, waiting to see what White
have to
House
wait and see.
policies will mean for the overall economy. And most economists say this strong jobs report eliminates any chance of an interest rate cut at that Fed meeting later this month. Eva?
Alexis Christophorous, thank you so much. Well, the 4th of July holiday weekend is fast approaching, and experts predict that millions will travel ahead of the holiday. FlightAware is reporting around 68 flight cancellations right now, but travelers aren't just flying. Millions are also expected to hit the roads. Let's break it all down with transportation reporter Sam Sweeney and our Jacqueline Lee, who is in Los Angeles. Sam, let's start with you. 68, that sounds pretty good. How's traveling going so far?
It's going really well so far. 68 is nothing compared to the grand scheme of things.
All right, where are we at here? You guys want to watch Canadian news?
Who's responsible about protecting the sites is actually the UNESCO. The UNESCO.
Okay, we'll continue talking about the big beautiful bill for the time being, since it's the kind of the big
all
news.
Want to be. He was a benchmark for Portuguese football. He was a
Oh,
talent.
never
of his
mind.
gen-
That's you can watch that too, but I guess we'll continue with ABC.
So good.
Yeah, that's good news. Jacqueline, most of us drive for this holiday weekend. What should drivers know before they hit the roads?
You know, I would personally want to drive because I feel like you can kind of choose your own adventure when it comes to that, whereas when it comes to flights, you really can't. You're kind of stuck.
Choose your own
But when it
adventure is
comes
just
to hitting
a
the roads, you want to get out of your house before noon because of just how busy it is. AAA is saying that more than 61 million people are going to be doing those long road trips, and it would be really awful if you ran into car trouble midway through the trip, guys. I mean, so that's why AAA says get that routine car maintenance ahead of
here. What are these guys talking about?
China's near monopoly on rare earth. The US is pushing for more domestic mining and has made its interest in other foreign suppliers like Ukraine quite clear. But there are more options.
Trump has his sights on Greenland, which belongs to Denmark, and he's not ruling out economic or military pressure. One key reason, its vast natural resources and rare earth elements. He's also seeking to secure future raw materials in Ukraine in exchange for U.S. support against Russia's war. Despite a diplomatic...
You know who else has a lot of the rare earths is Canada.
Was ultimately reached.
We're like right next door, dude.
Australia, meanwhile, is positioning itself as an alternative to China, with Prime Minister Albanese announcing billions for rare earth mining. And Europe? It's pinning its hopes on Sweden. In 2023, the continent's largest known deposits were discovered there, over 1 million tons. But large-scale extraction is likely still years away. Another area with room for improvement is a sustainable method, recycling. The recycling rate is just 1%, partly due to technical complexity. Then
all right,
there's
next.
Some at the intelligence level and so on and so forth, but there was never a comprehensive agreement like the one we have today, signed by both countries, and it went into effect last week on the 27th of June. This will be followed by a signing ceremony at the White House, which President Trump will witness, and both Presidents Tshisekedi and Kagame.
Oh, is this about the ceasefire in Africa?
Countries. It's a broad agreement and much more comprehensive. It includes also a very important economic element to it. The two parties have agreed to establish a joint regional economic integration framework, and this is one of its kind, and this is the first time they go into such an agreement. In addition, this accord as well, this peace accord, provides for a mechanism of implementation, which is also a new.
Already we see two divergent.
What's in the can you guys see it? Oh, it's soup.
There are two key
Just
elements
soup.
on the security level: the neutralization of the.
So I don't have to take a break and go and get something to eat.
By the DRC army and a withdrawal of Rwandan troops from DRC. But the Rwandans already saying first FDLR neutralization.
Soup with vodka, no, just straight soup. Minestrone soup, actually, it's really good.
What is the U.S. view on this key element?
Those things should go hand in hand, and both parties.
Shawarma, it's
establish a joint security
with a pop, it comes out to like $23 Canadian. It's actually quite expensive. That's why I was like, okay, I gotta stop. It's just having that like every day.
Security mechanism under which
actually it's about $20. Yeah, $23 Canadian, so like $3 American.
So the neutralization
no, it's
of FDLR is extremely.
I've had so much of that stuff lately. I was like, okay, I gotta stop eating out. I'm trying to lose weight, stuff like that, and I've kind of stalled in that process. So I've started going, like today I went back to the gym and did my cardio and stuff like that before the before streaming.
The African Union is here to also coordinate and facilitate, and so is the state of.
It looks like I'm going to be working from home for a little while now. So I'm going to try and go to the gym in the morning and then come home, be on for streaming by like 11 or 12 o'clock my time, and then stream for like 12 hours straight. We'll do the news thing first, and then we'll take a break, and then we'll do some WoW.
To rein in the M23, which occupies the eastern Congo.
I get promoted from work? No.
For the last several months.
President Kagame
no.
has expressed his full
no promotions
to this peace accord. He has expressed his full support to.
All right, that's about the peace thing. We got here. What is talking about? What am I missing?
Him in with
you guys heard about this?
Big stars, whether they rise to
Diogo Jota, Jota, I think it's pronounced.
Through, and that,
he's a star for the Portuguese national team. He died in a car crash today with his brother.
He arrives, Liverpool were champions of England. They have
plays for Liverpool.
You know, Sadio Mane.
Yeah, his brother too.
Best front threes that this club and maybe football's ever seen. And then this 23-year-old kid arrives from Wolves. And breaks into that team. Yeah, listen, it's not easy to play for Liverpool sometimes.
Sad.
It can be a bit sink or swim. And
I honestly don't really know him at all. Well, I mean, I don't know him personally, obviously, but I don't really follow soccer too much, so I wasn't really. I saw it come up on a tweet today, and only remember hearing his name because I was, I'd watched Portugal play before, but
a really top player and. Yeah, he helped them win trophies. He scored big goals. He scored penalties in finals. Just this a few months ago now was, unfortunately, it was his last goal for the football club. It's a winner against Everton in a Merseyside derby. There's no bigger game for us. That one that pretty much secured Liverpool a league title almost as well. So massive, massive moments. And when Liverpool needed someone, Diogo Jota often stood up.
So a huge loss to Liverpool, also to Portugal as well. How central was he to that team? How much will he be missed there?
Yeah, like I say, he's Portugal was often the Cristiano Ronaldo show, which again, understandable. But
life and how short it can be, gone in an instant. Yeah, there's
he often delivered Portugal. He probably didn't play as much for Portugal.
There was those two
given the circumstances, but you mentioned
Johnny
before,
Goodrow.
he was
Yet
very,
last
you know,
summer
on that
that
pitch
happened to
just a
him,
few
right?
months ago, well, a few weeks ago, really. Now, when Portugal won that Nations League final, he again, a kid from, if you hear him talking, the way he grew up through football, came through the system, moved away at a very early age.
So it was him and his brother last year. We had a
women's
hockey
football teams in
player
the world, one of the biggest national teams in the world.
like 15 years ago.
And he did that himself.
We
you know,
had
nothing
just
was handed to
drafted him.
And yeah, he deserved a lot of credit for that.
And he died in a motorcycle
tragedy.
accident.
Steve Hall, thank you for sharing your time with us today and our thoughts with all
Before
the fans
he even
today.
really got to play a
We'll be right
game
back.
for the Canucks.
Jota
And he was our
his
first-round
brother,
draft pick,
Andre
too.
Silva, too. The pair were traveling on a Spanish highway when their car crashed and burst into flames shortly after midnight, right there. Authorities believe a tyre burst whilst the car, a Lamborghini, was overtaking. Jota has just come off his most successful season. The 28-year-old played a key role in Liverpool winning the English Premier League. He also won the UEFA Nations League with his national team Portugal, and just last month he married his longtime girlfriend. They had 3 young children together. Jota's brother, Andre Silva, was 25 years old. He was also a professional footballer who played in Portugal's second division. More from CNN World Sports' Amanda Davis.
A champion taken far too soon. Diogo Jota was in the prime of his life. In the space of a month, he'd won the Premier League with his club Liverpool, the Nations League with his country, Portugal, and married the love of his life, the mother of his 3 children.
Man, that's sad.
His last Instagram post just hours before his death, a video of the wedding he'd celebrated just 10 days before.
Oh, man.
His tragic death confirmed by Spanish authorities.
10 days.
They say his car
Well, I'll be on for
burst
like
into
12 hours,
flames
cheesy.
after spinning off
I'm
the
still
road
trying to figure
when a
out
tyre
some
burst
issues that I'm having,
while
actually. For
overtaking.
some reason, my multi-stream thing just
Inside,
isn't working.
Jota and his 25-year-old
Stream's not-
brother, fellow
although
footballer
is it going up
Andre
on,
Silva.
might be going up on YouTube.
The head of the Portuguese Football Federation said the organisation and all of Portuguese
YouTube's working.
football are completely devastated.
Diogo was what
Which is
we all
good,
want to
because
be. He was a benchmark for
be
Portuguese
fair,
football.
that's
He was
more
a
important
talent
to me
of his
than Pitt,
generation, but much more than that.
Jota's club,
All right,
Liverpool,
I'll be
saying
on for quite a
simply
while,
they're
so.
devastated by the news.
Hey, Quizzy, how's it
describing
going?
it as an unimaginable loss and requesting privacy for his family, friends, and teammates. Jota arrived at Liverpool in 2020, quickly establishing himself as a key attacking
Oh,
player.
cheesy, did
so
you
much
sub with the
so
Prime?
that his contract
When
was
did that happen?
extended
48
2
minutes ago.
years
Did I walk away or something?
A new long-term
Dude, thank you,
deal.
man.
It's obviously from the close
Thank
perspective.
you. I just looked at
proof
my
of, belief in myself as a
during the
player.
intro. Oh,
His
I guess I
credentials,
should
though,
put the.
well
You know what?
known
I'll get
even
that
before
fixed.
he arrived in Liverpool.
I got to get
A key
the
player in
alerts
Wolves' promotion
put on
to
the intro.
Premier League in 2017. After impressing in Spain with Atletico Madrid.
Hold on, let
and
me just do
Porto
that now before I
in
forget.
Portugal. A talented
They're
youngster
fixed.
who first kicked a ball.
Thank you very much,
at the
man. I
tiny
appreciate
club
that.
Of Gondomar. They too devastated by the brothers' death.
He's gonna have a nap during my 12-hour.
We
Dude,
will
I
cherish
understand.
the memory of both of them forever.
I
Proud
understand.
to have seen them grow as athletes and exemplary.
Okay, let's see if we can get back to this big, beautiful bill. You guys talk. I feel like I'm missing a few stations that I normally have here.
$150 million this weekend, which is a big number. And then Running Man, we just got the trailer for that. So that one's coming out later this year. Glenn Powell.
There's a new
is in
Running
that.
Man?
Remember the 1987 film that starred Arnold Schwarzenegger? This one a bit different. Coleman Domingo in it as well. And Glenn Powell just, can he do any wrong right now? Apparently not. This trailer.
It's still not another question. I would take a nap.
Should be watching. Everybody keeps asking.
I might
about
take. I might consider taking a nap. Not while I'm streaming, but.
Maddox right before it began, and we've been kind of covering some of the exit interviews with contestants and so on. So there's been a lot of drama there, that's for sure.
Well, I fear we have to exit this interview, but it was a pleasure. Ralphie Aversa, thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Good to have you always.
You want Alligator Alcatraz? We can probably do that.
Anfield to pay their respects.
And find one. People that don't know what it looks like, but.
I thought it was some joke.
I was so shocked. I sprung out of bed immediately, and I couldn't believe it. I absolutely couldn't believe it. I didn't want to believe it at all.
He was literally the only player I enjoyed watching on the pitch for some reason.
Let's bring in Steve Hoare. He's from the Redmen TV, a leading online platform dedicated to Liverpool Football Club. Thank you so much for joining us. I think looking at Amanda's report, one of the, there's so many tragic elements to this. The timing is just so awful, isn't it? It was watching the video of his marriage, and that had only been posted shortly before. I mean, the loss is extraordinary.
All right, here, let's watch a video on Alligator Alcatraz here. And
it's the greatest tax cut in the history.
anyways, this is Alligator Alcatraz. I haven't actually really seen too much of the inside or anything like that, but
Of our country, and if it doesn't pass, it's the biggest tax increase
America,
in the history of our country.
that cracks me up.
68% increase as opposed to a massive cut. It's the biggest tax cut in the history of our country, and everybody gets it.
Everybody gets it.
CNN yesterday pushed an app that lets you track where ICE agents are. Tom Homan was saying that perhaps CNN should be prosecuted for that.
How do you make an app that tracks ICE agents? Like, do these guys have GPSs on them or something? Like, how does that work? The Gulf of America. Dude, that is so funny.
And they may be prosecuted also for having given false reports on the attack in Iran. They've given totally false reports. It's totally obliterated, and our people have to be celebrated. Not go home and say, what do you mean?
He's gonna start like attacking anyone that is not going against his propaganda and narratives. So I'm gonna sue you if you don't agree with me. I'm gonna sue you if you don't agree with me.
They may be very well prosecuted for that. What they did there, we think is totally illegal. Okay, let's go.
So this is a 14-minute video and a tour of what Alligator Alcatraz is supposed to be. It's a detention center for illegal immigrants. This is where they're going to stick them when they get caught. Like, literally, check this out. This looks like it's basically it's like it's supposed to hold like thousands of them. I'm not sure the exact number, but when I heard it, I was like, what? They're basically tents with steel link fences inside so that they can't get out. Well, it's in swamplands, Depismo. In the swamplands of Florida. So there are alligators all around, yes.
They actually did all the work. Nice to meet you. Thank you guys for doing this.
You had how many days to do it? This is day 9. 24 hours.
How do they know the immigrants' origin of countries? I don't know. Like, keep in mind, these people could be just nationalized people, like the kids that were brought here when they were 2 or 3 years old. I know of, get this. I know of someone. I don't want to mention his name. He can say who he is if he wants. He is born here in America, or born in America, not here. I'm in Canada. They should just be sent to Canada. He was born in America. His parents were immigrants. He served in the military, I believe it was in the Marines, did a tour of duty, and now is being threatened that he might actually be considered, one of these illegal immigrants because they just got rid of the the nationalized birthright or whatever it's called. So he doesn't think he's actually considered an American citizen. And after serving a tour of duty with the Marines, he's worried now that he might be deported. So, pretty crazy. Well, Mavo, I think they have actually revoked it now. Some of the Americans in chat can confirm with me, but I believe they've now actually officially revoked it. And you know what will be interesting is to see how many like white people that were born in America are getting shipped out, or if it's just going to majority be people that are of color. I saw a video. I should have saved it because it was just obviously like I don't believe it at all, but it was some guy just in hysterics. I believe like somebody that was just an ultra left-wing whack job basically that was just in hysterics saying that they were rounding these people up, putting them on the big like shipping planes, flying out over the ocean and pushing and throwing them out basically. But I obviously I think that's bullshit, but you know, he was just in hysterics, bawling his eyes out and stuff like that. And I'm like, okay, there's no way that this is true. Like, you've got to believe that's not happening. Julio Cesar Chavez gets beat by Jake Paul, and then shortly after, no, I did not see this. Somebody mentioned it to me. I'm like, come on, really? Is that a joke or no? Dude, stop. Are you effing kidding me? They've actually detained Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. Oh, this is his son. Is it his son? Oh, this is his son. "39-year-old boxer, large." Hey, Lexi Tunes, how's it going? All right, let's continue with the tour. So this is, again, a tour of the facility. You know, basically just cramming them in there. I mean, and to be honest, if you come into the country illegally, like, what do you, you know, the taxpayers would probably be right pissed off if they were being put up in a 5-star hotel or something, right? And if you put them up in a hotel, they're just going to escape, and then you have to find them again, right? Like, he's actually wandering around and he's walking around and examining it like he's Kim Jong-un. How's it going? Pretty good.
Mr. President, Mr. Governor, what's your message to
pretty good.
Gavin Newsom inside of this facility?
Well, the first thing you should do is come here and learn something.
Jeez.
They don't do this. They don't know. They wouldn't know where to begin, and if they did, it would cost them 100 times more. So I would say you should call the governor and Christie, and I'm sure you'd give him because his state is a disaster, and he doesn't do this.
Well, they have the original Alcatraz, so you guys could approve him being able to set one of these up over there. I'm sure the secretary would be happy to do that and provide some. My sense is he's probably not going to bite on that, but I don't know that they'd be able to come in at cost because they tried to do this high-speed rail. They spent like 150 billion, no tracks. We've got a privately funded rail in Florida from Miami to Orlando, cost the taxpayer zero, and it's very successful. So just a much.
It's sad to see this moron going about these things. As a kid, I always thought we'd keep on improving. It's the smugness that is irritating, isn't it? The arrogance.
First person checking into the room, sir.
Tomorrow.
Hopefully, yeah. Hopefully tomorrow.
Like listen to these fucking like questions, man. When is the first person checking into their room?
There's going to be a security sweep because there have been civilians here, so they will sweep this multiple times to make sure there's nothing can be used as weapons or any kind.
Nothing that can be used as weapons, dude. You're literally standing next to a metal fence. You think that like these criminals that you're claiming they are won't have parts of that like cut off and to be able to use?
So it's really up to Secretary. I know has got people in the queue, and so they'll be ready to receive.
I think our viewers at home should note that this is air-conditioned facility, so if any of the news claims are keeping them out in the hot, humid South Florida, that is wrong. It's probably 62 degrees in here, or 72. Hey, Biden wanted me in here, okay? He wanted me. It didn't work out that way, but he wanted me in here.
Mr. President, what's your expectation what this will do for the speed and force of deportation?
A lot of things, and they're both telling me that these people come in here, they want
So I hope I'm wrong because these people deserve eternity in hell. It's I don't know. Eventually, one day, maybe they'll answer for this sort of stuff, but
maximum security. Look, what we inherited from this guy.
like there is legitimate concern about the wave of immigrants that are coming in, and you know, I don't have a problem with people coming in if they want to be a part of you know, an active part of society and work and, you know, join the culture, so to speak. I don't have a problem with that, but the people that are coming in, they're just kind of like draining off the system. Though that I do have a problem with, and if they want to ship those people out, I have absolutely no problem with it. But the way in which they're doing it, the inhumane way that they're doing it, that's kind of the problem.
This incompetent man.
And let's be clear, the overwhelming majority of these people that they're deporting are not white.
Administration, which wasn't incompetent, it was radical left, lunatic, communist, whatever you want to say. I know most of them. What we inherited should never ever be forgotten. What they've made us do. This is all because of an
What
open
they've
border
made us do.
where 25 million people flowed in from all over the world, from prisons, from all over the world. They flowed in for no reason whatsoever. We had, you know, when I left, we had a very powerful border. We had no problem. He opened it up day one. He just opened the border. People couldn't believe it. They were standing there. What are they doing? They said, go in. That's it. You look at the first day tapes. They opened it up and they said, go in, and that's where all of this began. But this is an amazing thing that they've done here.
But listen, people don't have to come here. If they self-deport and go home, they can come back legally. We will let them come back legally.
And there is a lot of self-deportation.
But if you wait and we
Alex Central Politics.
you don't ever get to come back to America. You don't get the chance to come back and be an American again and work here. So.
They weren't with us when President and Secretary Kevin and I, we went through the intake. So right when you do the intake, they have the information about voluntary departure. They have the ability, obviously you guys.
Yeah, Vismo, you don't think that there's illegal immigrants from Germany or England, or you think they only come from south of the border? Are you are you serious? You think there's not illegal Canadian immigrants in the U.S.? For real?
Cheaper to do it that way. So even if they get brought to the front doorstep here, they still have an opportunity to just go back voluntarily, and then this way they're
How fast does that take from the minute that, let's say they get in here, they're like, hey, I want to stay here, I want to go back to.
We can put them on a plane that day and take them home. We'll buy their plane ticket, go home, and then.
Again, like I said, I don't have a problem with them deporting people that are there illegally. I actually don't really have much of a problem with it. As long as it's done, you know, relatively humanely. If they're people that are convicted of actual crimes, they should be deported and never allowed back into the country again.
And they get the chance to come back legally. If they wait and say we're not going to do that,
they can come back legally after a period.
Mr. President, you've talked recently about the idea of finding some way to get farm workforce and service sector workforce, and I think you've discussed
somehow a program of people leaving on a sponsorship and coming right back. Can you give us a little more detail about that and why, in the view of some hardliners, it's not amnesty?
Take care of our farmers and hotel workers and various other people. We're working on it right now, and Ron's going to be involved, and you're involved already. So we have a lot of cases where ICE will go into a farm, and these are guys working there for 10, 15 years, no problem. The farmers know them. We're going to put, it's called farmer responsibility or owner responsibility. But they're going to be
We'll be playing WoW later, Soak Paseth.
They know these people.
We'll be playing WoW later.
On the farms for 15 years, and all of a sudden, so I have a great, Ron does, Christy does, we have a great feeling for the farmer and for others in the same position.
See, this was a major concern that the farmers had. Was that it was a major concern that the farmers in the hotel industry had, was that a lot of these people that they've employed are illegal immigrants, technically, right? But they pay their taxes, they've got tax numbers and all that sort of thing. So that was one of the major concerns when they started talking about doing this. And the farmers were, I mean, there's videos all over the place of farm crops that are not being picked because the farm workers are scared to go to work.
Be here legally. They can pay taxes
So
and everything. They're not getting citizenship.
It sounds like they've made concessions for that.
They get other things. And the farmers need them to do the work. Without those people, you're not going to be able to run your farm.
Mr. President, you and the governor tangled pretty hard in the 2024 election. Yet you stand here now.
I didn't know that.
Yet you stand here now as partners on this effort. How would you describe the relationship, and what future does Governor DeSantis have? Excuse me?
I think it's a 10. Maybe 9-9, because there might be a couple of little wounds. So maybe it's 9. I think we have a 10.
Do you think his wife should run for governor?
We get along great.
Should Casey DeSantis run for governor?
The thing about it is, I endorsed him immediately in January 2024. I raised one of his PACs millions and millions of dollars, and obviously we saved him a lot of money in Florida because Florida was a deep red state. He didn't even have to do a rally in Florida, whereas 2016 and 20, this was like ground zero.
Pretty much killed everything, and now more Americans are leaving almost every day. From what I heard from a friend who works in the military, I don't know how many people are leaving. I know there were people that left. They got tired of the rhetoric and stuff like that the first time he was elected. Be kind of interesting to see if people are leaving. I know there were several professors that have immediately they left because they were worried they were going to get arrested for stuff that they were teaching in school, about politics and authoritarianism and stuff like that. And one of them was a very prominent professor. I think it was at Yale, and he immediately bounced and he's up in Canada now. He's got a job working at one of the major Canadian universities, but he was scared that he was going to get arrested for the stuff that he was saying, teaching his students.
With Florida, you can call him at any time, and he wants to be helpful for governors. I mean, I can tell you that. We did Hurricane Helene last year. You didn't hear from the president at the time then, but with President Trump, we know immediately. You just make the phone call.
Can we ask a Gaza follow-up question? I'm sorry, like another thing you inherited.
Vote against bills that would have added protection to the borders during Biden's term. Yes, this is very true, Grease Megs. He did.
He's coming here next week. He wants to end it too. We had a tremendous success with Iran.
Yeah, Divismo, the highly educated tend to lean left. Yes, you're correct. The people that are actually educated do tend to lean to the left. You're correct.
Sign, they are so bummed out. Did you see the report issued this morning? The place was decimated. It'll be years before anybody even gets down there. So that's not a priority, but we'll have a report and we'll have whatever we want. We'll get whatever we want from Iran. And I think, and I hope they will have a good, they have massive sanctions right now, biting sanctions. It's going to be very hard for them to do anything with those sanctions. And I look forward to maybe there'll be a time when we get along with them and they can rebuild their country.
But is there a point where you tell Netanyahu, like, you've got to end this now, you got to strike a deal?
Well,
One sec, guys.
He wants to, and I think we'll have it. I think we'll have a deal next week.
Thank you.
That's what I think.
Mr. President, did you intend to announce your pick for successor to Jay Powell earlier than say, or is it early to say this summer or this fall?
Will I do something about who it's going to be?
Yes.
I don't know. Hey, she'd be a good candidate. Anybody would be better than Jay Powell. No, he's causing us a fortune because he keeps the rate way up. I think think it's some derangements in her personally, but you know, we have a very strong country. We're the strongest country. Look, our country right now is at a level that we haven't seen for 40, 50 years. What we're doing now is nobody's seen anything like it. I told you, I was in the Middle East. The King of Saudi Arabia said to me very strongly, he said, you know what? A year ago you had a dead country. Now you have the hottest country in the world. We do. We have the hottest country in the world. Thank you very much.
I was going to say Syria.
We'll be seeing it over the next couple of years. Also, those type of industries.
Yes, Kush. Sorry, I had someone at the door.
Hello, I'm Louisa Pilbeam. This is Counting the Cost on Al Jazeera, your weekly look at the world of business and economics. This week, a big, beautiful bill or bad legislation. Donald Trump says his sweeping tax and spending cuts will help grow the economy. His critics say the bill will come at a high cost and increase national debt. But will it? The US says Canada has caved in to Trump's demands. Ottawa has scrapped its digital tax on American tech companies. But will that help the two nations resolve their trade dispute and reach a deal? A major tax overhaul in Nigeria. The government says it's aimed at raising revenue to fix Nigeria's struggling economy. But how will the reform affect the Nigerian people and businesses?
So right now, 7 people missing, unaccounted for. Their identity is not known, Alex.
Okay.
Explosion in California.
And coming up after the break, Princess Kate opens up about her recovery from cancer, why she describes her journey as a roller coaster. That's next.
Good cancer, but she's younger than I am.
Never stops. We are here.
She's like half my age. Well, not that quite that young, but.
Hurricane Helene ravaging the coastline of Florida. It's moving.
All right, let's see what else is on. Oh yeah, Trump and Putin had a phone call as well.
Rwanda-backed rebels said that they will send delegations to Qatar for peace talks. The announcement comes as the US pushes for an end to fighting, which could unlock billions in mining investments. Last week, Rwanda and DR Congo signed a peace deal in Washington, pledging to implement a 2024 agreement that would see Rwandan troops withdraw from eastern Congo within 90 days. Alain Wakani has more now from Goma in eastern DRC.
This was the first time that rebels of the M23 fighting under this coalition of IFC speaking out on this main negotiation which has been going on in Doha.
Oh, hold on.
The mediator imposed
what do we have here? What's going on here?
They didn't want
This is more about the bill.
To be safer, stronger, and more prosperous.
To offset the cost, food and healthcare programs would be slashed, mostly affecting low-income families. Democrats say the bill would make the rich richer and the poor poorer.
An American right now in my country, and almost every day they're relocating. Really?
Kicking them off their health care or cutting their food stamps.
Sorry, what?
Make the
In America,
injury
Sokpa said?
even worse by padding the pockets of the richest people in the country.
One big beautiful bill, critics say, will lead to a big ugly mess the U.S. can't afford. It would add an estimated $3 trillion to the U.S. national debt over a decade. That's on top
You live in
of its current
Cambodia?
debt of more than
I think I remember you
$35
telling me
trillion.
this once, actually.
It's going to add much more to the debt. And so I think without question, this is not a fiscally conservative bill.
Trump has promised
We're in
an
Cambodia.
economic boom for Americans, but many are still waiting, struggling with soaring prices and a high cost of living.
The president, vice president, cabinet, all those people.
Sorry.
People, they really, I don't think they really know what the average Joe Blow person goes through every day and what everything costs. They don't have a clue.
Under pressure, Trump is also
Where in
looking to the
Cambodia do
Federal
you live? Like
Reserve,
Siem Reap or
calling
something?
on it to drop rates as low as 1% to stimulate the economy.
We're in a position of wanting to take our time and make a smart decision.
But Chairman Jerome Powell says that's not Trump's call to make. Trump insists the bill will open the door for other economic initiatives to fall into place.
Full of Americans
Critics
right now.
argue it will backfire both in the short and long term. Katia Lopez-Odoyan, Al Jazeera.
I never
for
went to
Counting the
Phnom
Cost.
Penh when I was there, just Siem Reap.
Harry G. Broadman is the former chief of staff of the President's Council of Economic Advisors in the US. He's also a former assistant US trade representative, and he joins us from Washington, D.C. now. Great to have you on the program, Harry. As we're having this conversation, the bill heads to the
Big
House
beautiful
of
bill. Are you ready for
Representatives
massive inflation?
For that big vote. So do you
We're waiting
believe
for it.
that Donald Trump
This is
going to get his big
something we're
beautiful
gonna-
bill as he wants?
This is something that we are going to keep a close eye on in a couple of weeks. July 15th should be the next release. What day of the week is that? That's probably that's a Tuesday. So we will see if the inflation is going up because of the tariffs. But now also when the big beautiful bill comes in, we'll see if it goes up even more.
At a cost that America can't afford, around $3 trillion.
It'll be interesting to
so
see
there's
anyways.
the macro cost that you've just mentioned. I think the more important cost from my perspective, and I think most economists' perspective who have policy chops, is it's going to engender skewness in the income distribution. There are, always when you do public policy making, is you want to weigh the gains to the winners and the losses to the losers. It's not clear to me that the weights attached to the losses to the losers will
But also $20. It could be, man.
And so I think there is a pretty high likelihood that this will skew
Ray
income
Dalio,
distribution. Now, some will
Spooky, you
argue
understand I'm Canadian,
that,
right? So I might not know who this
distribution
is.
To the wealthier will drive incentives for investment. That's true. But, this country, as many know, is under incredible tension politically and policymaking wise. And this is a very divisive bill. And I think how it will be implemented, I think, is frankly more important, in the long run than the actual vote itself.
Let's look at the fact then that some people believe that this will make the rich richer and the poor poorer. Cuts to Medicaid, Social Security, safety nets, students, they all seem to be going there. As you said, a very divisive bill. Do you agree that those are the cuts that should be being made?
Well,
That's crazy,
the
dude.
question is, those cuts are obviously very sensitive to that
He
part of the
manages one of the biggest
population,
hedge
and I
fund,
think,
really.
Cuts of that magnitude.
I've heard the
really
name, but
should
I
be
didn't know
based
what he
on
did.
whether there's waste or fraud or abuse, and that money is going, to nowhere. And I
Crazy.
don't think that that's what the data that most of economists like myself have been looking at for years. And you can just pick up the headlines in any newspaper and see the divisiveness in this country. And it's clear that he will get the votes, I think, as we've discussed, but I think at what cost? And I think it's really going to create more upheaval in the social fabric of the United States. And the question is that worth it? I don't know, but this is not the way that I would make public policy, frankly.
Yeah, and that's the human cost there then. Trump saying, though, that the bill will bring explosive growth. That's a quote from Donald Trump. Do you believe that that's an accurate assessment?
I think to some extent that's true, but what really matters, I think, beyond what's happening within the United States domestically is what does that mean for U.S. competitiveness abroad? And, we've got competitiveness on the part of our factories and the products and services that we produce, but what about the workers? What about, children coming through school now, college graduates, will they get the kind of, incentives to sharpen their skills to compete with other countries around the world? And I think is what really agonizes people like me who have been in
Spoke
these
with Seth.
policy debates for a long time is looking.
I think I would fall in the same category that the people that you're talking about. Like it is just getting so expensive here. And we look at other places to live when we retire and realize how much cheaper it is for us to retire in other countries. Like I've started traveling to other countries, and part of the reason I'm going to them is to look at where I might want to move to in 10 to 20 years when I retire. And I went to Cambodia. Cambodia was nice. There were some things that I wasn't too fond of in Cambodia, but the people were extremely friendly. Bali is another place I haven't been there yet. I'm hoping to go to Italy in September. I also went to Vietnam and Thailand, which I like both of them. Vietnam was spectacular. I loved it there, but it's so cheap. Yeah, how old am I? 27. You should believe that.
Looking at the long run versus the short run, there may well be.
But I think that's a big reason why they're going
a more competitive
there.
Economy, as a result of this kind of legislation. I don't know what the Chinese are thinking when they look at a bill like this.
Just the cost of living here, man. It's so expensive.
Are probably chuckling.
Well, we shall see what happens. But in terms of the economy, we cannot talk about the economy without also looking at the impact of Trump's tariffs. How are they feeding into this? And then that big word, inflation. Are there inflation fears?
Well, absolutely. All other things equal, as economists are wont to say,
Push, you could live like a king for under $2,000 a month.
Is that going to help? More sales,
like literally a king,
overseas, or hurt? Imports coming in, and what's the balance therefrom? And I don't think that tariffs historically have shown to be the most effective way of improving the competitiveness of any economy of the world. And these are unprecedented.
These are like major economists that are agreeing, that would agree with what this guy's saying. Tariffs are bad for economics. I'm going to tell you guys a quick story. When I was in Thailand, I went there like a year and a half ago. I went to Vietnam, Cambodia, and Thailand in one trip. And the Thailand portion was specifically because I wanted to finish off my scuba diving certificate. So I've got now my advanced open water certificate. I can basically scuba dive anywhere in the world now. Up to a depth of close to about 40 meters, basically, which is actually pretty deep. But anyways, when I was there, the guy that was my instructor was this guy named Darren, but he was from Australia. But he'd permanently moved to Thailand and was living there basically and working there as an immigrant and getting paid basically what a Thai individual would get paid over there. And we were talking to him because we were like, how does this work? Do you know? I've heard the name. I think I've seen a couple of his videos on YouTube, Devismo, but I don't actually follow him. I never talked to the guy. But anyways, we were asking him, like, how does this work? Like, like how much can you earn doing what you're doing? And he had what is considered a pretty decent job, right? And he told us what he was earning, and it's like, man, that's like, he's making like $1,000 or I think he was making like $1,200 or $1,500 a month American. And we're like, you can live off that? And he told us that, the place that he and his wife lived, he married a Thai lady. They lived in basically like a one-room place, and he said that, it's nothing fancy. It's definitely not to the standards of what we're used to in like, the rest, in Australia or whatever. But he was like, you know what? I live in paradise. I am blocks from the beach. I see a beautiful sunset every night. I get to scuba dive for a living. They still eat well. Like the food that they eat is fresh fish stuff all the time. And, he said he loved it. And, maybe once a year he would go back to Australia and work for his old company for a month or two or something like that to make some extra money. But overall, he said he didn't really need to. And they were happy living that way. I would want a little bit more. When I retire, I want to be living well wherever I move to. But I don't honestly think I'll stay here in North America. Canadian class well player, also big into scuba diving, and nice guy all around. Get a chance to watch him, go for it. Okay.
Prevented sizable tariffs and the distribution of those tariffs across the economy. This is in part how we got into the Great Depression, and I think economic
Hot tub stream
historians,
when? In about
like
4
myself,
years.
frankly, have studied this, and
It's
this
too
is
hot
not
for hot
probably
tubs
the
right now.
wisest
Too
course
hot.
of action to boost U.S. competitiveness, which is what we all want.
It's been called the big, beautiful bill by Donald Trump. And this is a big question for you, Harry. But what did this bill miss?
Well, I think it really does not focus
There is
enough
actually a pool
on
nearby,
sharpening
Kush.
the skills of U.S.
There is a
workers,
pool nearby.
investing in research and development, particularly applied research and development that makes America more competitive against the Chinese and even our partners in the G7, who I think have taken more important steps to sharpen science and technology in their economies. And this bill does not focus on that. It doesn't focus really, frankly, on the future of sharpening the competitive edge of United States industries. And I think that is a big component that is missing, and it's not the way
20% more
I think most
expensive
of us
groceries in the
think about
coming
what
couple of years.
kinds of
Well, it's. I
curative
mean, the interest rates are going to go up like crazy because you've got to suddenly be able to pay all this extra debt off, right? Like it's
are needed in order
good
to
luck.
boost U.S. growth.
The thing is, though, is it'll have an impact like relatively quickly, so it'll look like an economic boost. But then down the road, when you've spent all this money and you've got to start paying it back, and then the interest rates go up, man. Like people, you know what's going to happen though is there's going to be a different government in power at that point, and they're going to start pointing the finger at that government. That's how long these things take for it to get into place. So, and it's the same thing that happened with his last term. You know, they started spending a whole. There's actually charts that show like how much debt is paid off and stuff like that based on who is in the government. And over the course of like the last like 70 years or something like that, I think the chart showed that consistently the Democrats were actually paying off more of the debt than adding to it. But eventually it's got to be paid off.
And not just boost economic growth in the short term, but over the long term to become more competitive in the global economy.
Okay, Harry G. Broadman, we really appreciate your
4-year
expertise on
cycle
this
is about
subject.
right.
Thank you for being
And same as when like if you have say Trump in power for 4 years and he does a lot to fuck up the economy, and then Biden takes over. Well, a lot of people in general, and the same thing happens here in Canada. A new government will come in. We just elected a new prime minister, and you know how many people are already pointing the finger at him, saying, "Hey, your economy is dog shit." He just got elected like 2 fucking months ago. Like it's not, you know, you've got to give it time for his economy or his policies to actually take hold. It doesn't happen overnight. But you have the same thing down in the U.S. Like a new government comes in, and they're like, "Oh, look at the," you know, 2 days after the guys got taken the election, it's like, "Oh, your economy is bullshit."
being with us.
Thank you.
Canada is America's second largest trading.
Oh, what did
partner,
Canada
since
do
Donald
now?
Trump took office in January.
What did
ties between
Canada
the two
do now?
nations have been severely under strain. The president has repeatedly threatened to annex Canada. He's also imposed a set of tariffs on the nation's goods, which are dragging down its economy. The Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney vowed to stand up to Trump after he was elected in April. His government has imposed a digital services tax on American tech companies that has led Trump to suspend trade talks with Ottawa. But 48 hours after announcing the decision, the Canadian government scrapped the levy. The measure was passed into law last year by the government of former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, and the first payment was due on June the 30th. It was set to be 3% of the revenue from digital services a firm takes in from Canadian users, above $14 million in a calendar year. payments would have been retroactive to 2022 and would have cost American tech giants, including Alphabet, Amazon, and Meta, billions of dollars. A number of countries, including the UK, have such taxes in place. The total value of trade between Canada and the US passed $1 trillion.
I'm still your favorite
last year,
Canadian.
but
I
Trump
appreciate
says
that.
Canada is one of the countries that has been, quote, ripping America off because
We've
of
been
the
ripping
vast
them
value
off,
of
everyone.
goods it imports into the
Ripping
US.
them off.
About 3/4 of Canadian exports go to the US. That's more than $412 billion worth of goods last year, while Canada imported almost 350.
But by the way, the bulk of our goods is like natural resources and stuff like that, stuff that America needs. So
$50 billion worth of American products. Trump has imposed a 25% tax on most Canadian imports that don't comply with the US-Mexico-Canada trade agreement. Like other countries, Canada's aluminium and steel imports also face
what did you call it? Aluminium?
a tariff of 50%, and it faces duties on car exports to the US. In response to those tariffs, Canada levied a 25% tariff on US-made vehicles and a 25% tariff on around $43 billion worth of US goods. Well, let's look at what's been going on between Canada and the US with Armin Yanisian, who is a former economics policy advisor for the Canadian government. She's also a fellow on the future of workers at the Atkinson Foundation, and she joins us from Ottawa now. Armin, it's great to have you with us on the programme. So why did Canada backtrack on this digital tax? The White House has said that Mark Carney has, quote, caved in, but do you agree?
It's difficult to tell if this is a cave-in or a strategic process. It couldn't have been more
albums behind her?
brinksmanship. The move likely reflects an opportunity to continue trade talks as much as possible to the 11th hour and then let Mr. Trump show that he's got the upper hand. But it is disappointing given the tax purpose, which was asserting sovereignty in the face of these globe-straddling tech giants like Amazon and Meta and Google and Apple. These are companies that have dodged tax responsibility for years. You know, they act like public utilities at the global level with none of the duties to serve the public and generating massive profits. So taxation was absolutely on the menu for them.
Mark Carney, though, has said previously that Canada is going to stand up to a bully, referring, of course, to President Donald Trump. Why the climb down at this point?
Well, I would say timing is everything on this at this point. It came into like the very first day of paying these taxes came into effect while trade negotiations were underway, and Trump saw this as a challenge to his authority. Of course, he sees everything as a challenge to his authority. And let's not forget that the men who put him in office were standing.
I'll think about it so quick steps. I've got to retire first. Let me retire first, okay?
Who made their fortunes on digital services, and the DST, the Digital Services Tax, basically targeted them. And it reflects something about a political debt that Trump owes these men for putting him in office.
Okay, so going forward then, 3/4 of Canada's exports go to the US, worth around $700 billion a year, while Canada just takes 17% of US production. So if we look at that and then translate that into bargaining power, going forward in these transactional talks, who has the upper hand then there?
Well, there's no question that there's no other country on the surface of the planet that is as exposed to Trump's trade whims as Canada. However, trade is multidimensional. While it's true that we export more to them than we import from them, they still need us. They need us for oil. They need us for gas. They need us for softwood lumber. They want our critical minerals, as they want from everybody everywhere. And also his tariffs, Trump's tariffs that he has imposed on auto, steel, and aluminum jack up costs for American producers and consumers. So trade is multidimensional. And, though it's true that U.S. has got quite a lot of leverage right now, it's not a one-sided game.
Okay, what has been the impact of Trump's tariffs on Canada so far, if any?
Well, so far, we
actually I'll show you what they are right now. So our inflation and our our inflation rate is actually gone down over the last obviously substantially from before, like all other countries, but ours is actually still on a downtick. Again, this will update on the 15th of July. So we'll look at both the American and the Canadian inflation rate, but you can see that consistently, say for maybe 2 or 3 months, since last year, our inflation rate has been below 2%, which is pretty good.
We have every country in the world that has been hit by these tariffs has lumped in more
Sukpith Seth, I don't have an English teacher's license to actually teach in other countries.
production and more wholesale sales in the first quarter of the year. And we ducked a contraction of the economy in the first quarter, which the United States did not do. However, it looks like our economy is slowing. The entire global economy is slowing, and our unemployment rate is up to up to levels not seen since 2016, and that's hitting the young generation the hardest and the most. People trying to get in to their first jobs. The second part of it is, of course, inflation. When you see this kind of contraction of production and slowdown of trade, you're going to have supply shortages, as we saw during the pandemic.
Hey, that's
has
old
not
Canadian
showed
money.
up in
These are the bills I grew up with.
Of supply shortages, as we saw during the pandemic. That has not showed up in general inflation yet, but it is guaranteed to do so. And this combination.
Why do people only talk about the tariffs? What are you talking about? We've heard it all over the news, the types of tariffs that other countries charge. What are you talking about?
Of higher unemployment and higher inflation makes it extremely difficult to know where to fight the fire. It's like you got a fire brewing in 2 rooms of the house. One is higher unemployment, one is higher inflation, and the techniques for fighting these things are quite different. Actually, they're exactly the same, but you got to choose.
See, here's the thing with Canada's industries, or we're a lot. Most of our economy is based on resources. So whether it's lumber, minerals, oil, fishing, like a lot of it is resource based. And in the case for, I'll use the case for like oil, for example, a lot of our oil goes to the U.S. I can't remember the name of the pipeline, but there's a pipeline that goes from Alberta basically straight down to the U.S. where they refine the oil down there, and then they use it all over the U.S. We can increase production, which we have actually been, but when you tariff something, I'll use steel as an example. They put a 25% tax on our steel because they, his explanation is that they want to produce their own steel. The problem is that they can't produce enough of their own steel. That's why they buy so much from us, right? So the when he put the 25% tariff on Canadian steel, Mark Carney immediately just went over to Europe, and guess who was more than willing to buy Canadian steel? Because we can produce so much of it. And I don't know the process of actually making steel, but apparently because of what's available to us, we are able to produce like the best steel in the world, essentially, from what I've read. So the Europeans were like, hey, we're dramatically increasing our arms and military and stuff like that. We need your steel. So the same thing happened with, so we basically just shifted. America doesn't want our steel. Okay, fine. We're going to sell it to Europe instead. You put a tariff on our oil. Okay, fine. You know who came in? China came in and said, hey, we want to buy your oil. So we've built a second pipeline that goes from Alberta to a place called Burnaby. It's basically Vancouver. And it's not actually far from here. It's an actual refinery where they're refining the oil there, and then they're shipping it off on boats. There's probably 10 tankers that I can see from my window. And they're basically here just, picking up cargo and stuff like that. But the number of tankers that has dramatically increased because Asia now wants our oil. So now there's massive talks about us creating more pipelines that are coming to the coast because now Asia wants to buy our oil. If you don't want to buy our resources, or if you want to put tariffs on it to make our our product less competitive with your market, that's fine. But there will be lots of buyers lining up to be able to buy it. Another very big example of this is when, I can't remember what it was that the U.S. tariffed China with or something like that, but China immediately turned around and said, fine, we're not going to buy your soybeans anymore, and immediately started buying the soybeans from Brazil instead. And it basically just killed the U.S. market. That's why tariffs are really, really not a very good idea. Seems like everyone is making the U.S. the villains when it comes to tariffs. What about when China starts charging tariffs against Canada? Well, their tariffs were in retaliation to us tariffing China. And you know why we started tariffing China? Was because the U.S. asked us to. Is help save their auto industry. They didn't want BYD and the Chinese automotive industry to be able to come in to North America. So they asked us to go along with the Americans to tariff their industry. So we went along with it, and that's why you don't see any BYD cars in North America. You don't see any, but you go anywhere else. You go to Europe, you go to Asia, you go anywhere else, South America, you see BYD cars everywhere. So now we're in a situation where they put a tariff on our steel. I can almost guarantee you that the Canadian government's going to say, you know what, fine, fuck you. We're going to now allow BYD to come into Canada without tariffs, and just make an agreement with the Chinese government that they've got to open up an auto plant here and use our steel to build their cars. You think the Chinese wouldn't absolutely love to get their hands on the North American market? Probably.
Choose what room you're going to fight the fire in first, and that's
yeah. China's a very open economy. Like, they don't have a lot of tariffs on people. They will respond with tariffs. So if you tariff them, they're going to tariff you right back. So like I said, we only put a tariff on their it's 100% tariff, by the way, on their cars. Like 100%. That's insane. But I could very well see Canada saying, you know what, fuck this, we're taking it off. And why wouldn't they? Because their cars are far better than the Teslas, and they're half the price. And if you want, and the Canadian government's been very big on this, low pollution, switching to electric vehicle, thing for quite some time now. Why would they then also at the same time, in the same breath, say, okay, you know what? We want you to switch to electric vehicles, but we don't want you to switch to this one because it's half the price and more people would buy it. Like, that doesn't make sense, right? So I would be shocked if we don't see the BYD electric vehicles in the Canadian market in the near future.
Incredibly difficult for monetary policy and fiscal policy.
Talk about how the Chinese government subsidizes their own vehicle manufacturing. So what if they do? Who cares? Good. They're creating a more competitive environment for their companies. Why would you not do that? Like, what's the problem? If your government can do something to help your companies in your country become more competitive and more profitable, why would they not do that? You know why Trump hates Canadian lumber so much? Well, there's two reasons. One, it's the best lumber in North America in order to actually build homes. Look it up if you want. Spend some time on Google. But number two is Canada. The Canadian government leases the lands to the logging company for a very, very cheap price. So it allows them to be much more competitive in pricing their lumber. That's why Donald Trump doesn't like it. I already talked about the Chinese. Some case with greedy never made it to. Same case with Geely. What is Geely? I don't know what that is. I'll take that bet. I think the ban stays. We'll see. We'll see. But when the American government is turning their backs on other economies, why would we just sit there and take it? Why wouldn't we just say, okay, fine, we're gonna allow the Chinese automotives here? They're everywhere else in the world. Why would you can buy one in South America? Why do you think that Canada would say is a Chinese? Geely owns Volvo, but it's originally a Chinese car. Oh, is it? I did not know that. I didn't know that they owned Volvo either. I still thought Volvo was Swedish originally, right?
thus far has been focused in Canada on maintaining industrial capacity. It's fighting a war and making sure that we've got protections for the energy sector and for our industrial plant.
Devismo, the problem with tariffs is they're not protecting your market. You're not creating enough steel for your production. Like the U.S. itself cannot produce enough steel. That's why they have to buy it from us. Okay, and we had a free trade agreement in place. So when they put tariffs onto Canadian steel, it increases the price of your products. It doesn't increase the price of our products. Like if we make the stuff here or whatever, it's still the same price. But anything that's made with Canadian steel or Canadian lumber, like all your houses or your oil and gas for gasoline, that's you, the American public, is going to pay for that. So go ahead. Is that subsidies and tariffs are both market manipulation? So don't praise. Tariffs are nothing but a tax, dude. Don't confuse it. Tariffs are a tax on the citizens of the country. Period. That's it. It's just another way to tax money out of your pocket. And when your tax, like they're trying to find ways to make up the taxes for all these tax cuts that the super rich get. Do I need to make this on paint? What are my paint skills like? Terrible. But we're going to. Let's see if we can do this. This is going to look absolutely dog shit. Absolutely dog shit. Okay, but we're going to try. We're going to try. How do we want to do this? Imagine your tax rate is here. Let's see. We'll put an R here for the super rich, okay? And this is how much they're paying in taxes right now. If they're getting tax cuts, right? So let's say they're getting taxed. This is the portion of taxes that they're paying in the country, basically. Let's say if this is now the new amount that they're paying in tax, so they're saving a bunch of money, it goes down to here, but their spending, we'll make another arrow. Their spending is going up here. It's basically going through the roof. They need to make up this difference in money. And they're trying to do this with tariffs. That's one of the ways that they're trying to make up this difference. Now, tariffs are not paid by, like, they're obviously the super rich pay for them. But I'm going to use an example of, I don't know, let's say screws or something like that. Something that's made from steel, okay? If a screw costs, let's say a screw costs, I don't know, $1. Okay, a screw costs $1 and it goes up to $1.10. And let's say the super rich, they're buying 10 screws, so they're paying an extra $1, right? $1 for a screw. I know this is dog shit and this is terrible. I was not really prepared to do this. This is what the super rich are paying extra for another 10 screws. Okay, and that's for one super rich person. Okay, there's one billionaire. He just happens to need 10 screws. He's going to pay an extra $1. Guess what? He doesn't give a fuck about paying the extra $1. However, regular Joe Blow, we're going to call it JB. Okay? When he spends, there's way more than just one of them. There's millions of them for every billionaire. So let's say there's a million of these guys. Is this the worst fucking graph you've ever seen in your life? There's a million of them, each paying an extra $1 for 10 screws. I don't know. They're putting shit up in there. Okay, so they're paying an extra $1. That means there's an the ultra rich are only paying an extra $1 for the tax, the million other Joe Blows that need 10 screws are paying an extra $1. That's $1 million extra in taxes. That's where they're trying to make up this part here. This is being paid by the regular Joe Blows. Does that make sense? That is how they are literally. Does this make sense, or is this the worst graph you've ever seen? Or both? Maybe it's both. But when you're putting tariffs onto products, it goes onto all products, including your regular everyday items, which everybody buys. I just used screws because I was using steel or whatever, right? But it could be on anything. It could be on oil, your gas, for example. Like you're putting tariffs on Canadian oil, that means your gas prices are going to go up. Mr. Joe Blow, if he pays an extra 50 cents or, $1, $5, whatever for a tank of gas, the billionaire, he doesn't give a shit. He could give 2 shits if he spends an extra $5 for a tank of gas. Now, these 1 million citizens, if they've got to pay $5 more every time they fill up gas, it's going to affect them a lot more. But it's also going to bring in a lot more here. So the benefit is going to the ultra-rich dude. And these guys here that are making up the difference for taxes and getting hurt by it, they're the ones that are going to suffer for it. We all know less about tariffs after seeing this graph. This graph is fucking amazing. It should be taught in university, okay? Does that make sense? Does it actually make sense to you guys? Like, that's all tariffs are. It's a tax. That's it. It's not, you approve of this graph? Thank you. It's a tremendous graph. But that's all it is. It's a tax on your everyday goods. So if you're bringing in resources that are being tariffed, it is going to cost you, all of you, more money. There are no economists arguing in favor of tariffs. There inevitably probably are, John Sven, but I don't think any economist worth their that their opinion would be worth anything would agree that tariffs are actually a good thing. It's a big, beautiful graph. It is. It's a fantastic graph. I wasn't prepared to actually make graphs today, but that is essentially what a tariff is. It's just a tax. Why not call it a tax? If they called this a tax, do you think, like if they said, hey, we're going to tax these prices, if they'd come out and said, hey, listen, we're going to put a tax on Canadian steel, and that tax is going to result in increase in prices, how do you think the MAGA crowd would have felt about it? How would they have felt about it? They'd be like, what do you mean price selection, dude? You buy gas? Like it's not like certain oil companies are not using, you're using Canadian gas. If you're getting your house built, you're likely using Canadian lumber. And the fact of the matter is America doesn't produce enough of this shit to not use our resources. They don't produce enough lumber. They don't have enough of the correct type of forest in order to cut down enough trees to produce enough lumber to build homes. Like, it's just the price of your new homes, any new homes being built, is going to go up. The price of your gas will go up. Although the tariff on that is only 10%. If tariffs are good, why didn't they tariff at 50%? If tariffs are so good, why not tariff everything 100%? Devismo. Why not just tariff it all? 100%. 5,000%. And here's the thing. How do I make a new one? New, because do we want to save this graph? No. Here's another thing. I talked about oil. Hey, let me just quickly do. I just want to make sure I get the right. I just want to confirm exactly how much it is. Okay, Canada's oil production. Can I just? Canada's oil production. Okay. Canada's oil production is here. We'll make the graph here like this. Okay, it's 5.6. Whoops, 5.6 billion with a B barrels of oil a day. Okay, the bulk of it, was like this much here, was going down to USA. Whoops, USA. And then the rest was going somewhere else, like wherever. Domestically, it was being used, and maybe a little bit. When the U.S. decided that they were going to put tariffs on it, and for whatever reason, I don't know why, because they're getting the oil at a very cheap price. All they're doing is taxing the citizens that are buying gasoline at the gas stations. So what Canada has done is, in recent years, is our production was actually lower. It was like 4.4 before, or something like that. We'll say 4.6. Canada has now increased the production. Okay. But now China, or we'll call it Asia, because it's the bulk is China, but a lot of it is just going to Asia in general. And then now the US is taking less. But the point is there will always be people that want to buy our resources. So it's not going to slow us down at all. If the US is like, okay, we're going to put a 50% tax or tariff on it, then let's say the oil goes down here and we're still producing this much. You think that we're not going to be able to find buyers for this amount of extra oil? We're still going to have people that need our resources. It doesn't matter. You can put a 25% tax on our steel, whatever. It will take a little bit of time to shift away from selling our steel to like the automotive industry in the U.S. But the Europeans immediately, as soon as it was announced a 25% tariff on steel, the Europeans immediately came in and said, "Hey, we need your steel." I'm not a fan, but you have to be. Do you think that the U.S. doesn't subsidize companies, Devismo? I feel like you feel like this is just something that other countries do, which is not the case. It is definitely not the case. And if they're not doing it enough, they could do it more to help their companies be more competitive. Yeah, okay. John Sven makes a very valid point. Your farming industry and dairy industry is heavily subsidized. You know why they're they're heavily subsidized? Because of the shit that Trump caused in the first term that he was elected, which caused a lot of countries to say, "Fuck you, we're not buying your soybeans anymore. We're gonna buy them from Brazil." Look that up. I'm not kidding you. You can Google it and you can see just how much Trump fucked over the farmers. That's why in his first term he had to bail them out. How much? Hold on. Let me Google that. How much did Trump have to bail out farmers? His first term. Trump farmer bailouts. $28 billion that Trump had to bail them out. Now there may be some of that they were going to do anyways. I'm just trying to see if there's if it says how much of that is because of China shifting away. But imagine a market like China suddenly saying, "Fine, we're not going to buy anything from you anymore. We're just going to buy it all from Brazil." Brazil's soybean market is like absolutely thriving. Also, the research behind many of the production of successful American companies was possible due to public funding. Like one of the I guess pros of the American military might is they have advanced, like they have made tremendous advancements in certain areas that they would normally not have gotten in other ways. Like whether it's aviation or what have you. There have been a lot of advances, but this is a secret. Don't tell anyone. But do you know who pays for the American military? You know who pays for the American military? You. You pay for the American military. It's subsidized. It's socialism, actually. The American military is socialism, which is actually really ironic because there's so many people that are like, oh, I don't like that because it's a fucking socialist program. Your military is a socialist program. USS does subsidies as well. I'm for completely getting rid of subsidies and tariffs. Governments putting these things in place are the problem. There should be free trade. I think any economic, economist would disagree with that. Yeah. I think if you look at economies that are doing well, they're doing much better now that they've learned that the government subsidizing or helping things move along is actually good for the economy. Fastest growing economies in the world right now. What does China do? They're subsidizing their economy. You take a look at where China was 30 years ago and compare it to today, dude. I mean, hold on. Let me bring up a video. Let me see if I can find one. People think that China is like this country that's got it's a third world country where it has people that are living in slums and shit like that. You need to understand that this is fucking China. It is not that country of 20, 30 years ago. This is pure it's showing you exactly how powerful the government can be in using its tremendous amount of resources to help the economy. And if China were more free, it would have grown even faster. Why do you think that? Because you're pro being completely free? It's the fastest growing economy in the history of the world, Devismo. The last 30 years. And it did that through the tremendous might of what the communist government was able to do. It's not actually technically a communist country. I mean, technically, I guess it is, but they're very much a market-based system. This is China, dude. Do you see any shit like this in North America or in Europe? And they've done this all in the last 30 years, dude. All in the last 30 years. I think a lot of us are old enough to remember our textbooks when we were kids, and we learned about the Chinese the war between the communists and I can't remember was it the nationalists? I can't remember the name of the other party that ended up in Taiwan. But we remember seeing videos of that sort of shit, and the Chinese under Mao and stuff like that, where they had ridiculous policies about killing birds and stuff like that, which caused massive famine. We remember reading about this sort of stuff and seeing pictures and videos of this sort of stuff of these peasants that were roaming around town. This is China of today. It is probably the most advanced country in the world. Do you think there's another country that is more advanced right now than China? Honestly? You should probably take a trip over there, dude. Why does it matter what they should have been decades or centuries ago, dude? It's all that matters is today. Where are they at right now? Like, do you think that the U.S. is catching up to them right now, or falling behind? I got news for you. If you think that you're catching up right now, that's no. Fact of the matter is they're kicking everybody's ass. Plain and simple. They are literally kicking everybody's ass. Right now they're still behind? No. Dude, they are catching up so fast. It is like, and technology-wise, their population is very, very quickly catching up. And the standard of living is phenomenal. Like, the crime rate is way down. The public issues like drug use, fentanyl use all over the place. It's just not prevalent like it is in, you walk down any North American city and you see drug addicts fucking everywhere, man. Drug addicts literally everywhere. It is stark contrast to what we're seeing happening over here. They are literally like this, and we're at best at this. At best. So, the equivalent of getting boosted by 6. Sorry, what? I mean, I'm not getting boosted by 60. I don't know, have no idea what that's talking about. Like, are you still mad because the Chinese government was able to help their economy turn around ridiculous, like way faster than any other economy in the world? And on top of that, they also have things for their citizens like universal health care. You know, they've got some of the best health care in the world. Their public education is fantastic. Lots of other social programs are fantastic. Their health, the health of the citizens in general is fantastic. If you go over there, do you think you see a bunch of fucking fat people walking around the street? Enjoy your time, and I'm probably actually going to retire in Italy, actually, but thank you. Do you think you see a bunch of fat people walking around China all over the place? Or do you think they're generally much healthier individuals? I get that you're mad because it's hard for you to accept this fact, but it's just the facts, dude. I'm saying this as somebody whose country is gonna is beat by China as well. Like, I don't know why you're mad. It's just facts.
So we're signing at about 5 o'clock, and at about 5 o'clock we're gonna have B-2s and F-22s and F-35s flying right over the White House. And the Speaker and I and John Thune, we're all there together with most Republican senators and congressmen and women, and it's going to be a great day. So we'll be signing with those beautiful planes flying right over our heads. All right? What's your expectation for the next round of Trump's three-way talks with Iranian counterparts? Well, we're going to see. Steve is a great guy. He's a great negotiator. Iran does want to speak, and I think they'd like to speak to me, and it's time that they do. We're not looking to hurt them. We're looking to let them be a country again. They got beat up. And
Obi says in Denmark we have amazing healthcare, but we have a lot of fat people, nothing to do with healthcare. Here's the Global Obesity Observatory, which ranks countries by how obese they are. They've got the United States listing as 41, almost 42% of their population as being obese. And that's not slightly overweight. That is the percent of the population that is like grossly overweight. Yeah, I bet Canada's not doing fantastic either. Here we go, 28%. If What is North Korea is I mean, are these people were starving, so but it is definitely a massive health concern in the US with how many people are just grotesquely overweight. And I'm overweight. Like it's not a matter of like we're better than they are or they're better than us. The quality of food has a lot to do with it. It's where was China again or Canada again? Like 28%? Like that is a huge amount. If you were to compare this to like 1940s or something like that, I would be shocked if any European country was higher than 20%. Like if you look at old video reels of people in like New York City from like the 1920s, you know, those old black and white ones, you see like no fat people. All right, see you later, Mavo. Have a good one, man.
You know, they were both.
Commercial break. All right, let's see what's going on with
because they were disturbed by these practices that they're saying that the people being hired by this foundation are
So this is on to Gaza now.
The Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, though, is harshly rejecting all
More
of this.
strikes still continuing in Gaza.
Immediately launched they launched an immediate investigation when the AP first brought these allegations to our attention. They say based on time-stamped video footage and sworn witness statements, we have concluded that the claims in the AP story are categorically false. At no point were civilians under fire at GHF distribution sites. But we should point out, Alex, that this is an organization that has, again, been controversial. There have been a number of humanitarian organizations.
Apparently 94 people died today in Gaza because of the military striking citizens. 94.
500 Palestinians in Gaza have been killed trying.
Hold on. They've killed 600 civilians trying to get food for their families.
Big thing to watch here. So this is a 60-day ceasefire proposal that has been mediated by President Trump and the U.S. We found out from President Trump that the Israelis had accepted this proposal, and we are now waiting to see what Hamas does. The big headline there is that Hamas has said it is studying the proposal, and we do expect, according to an Israeli official, that we'll get a response from them in the next 24 hours. The big sticking point, though, is negotiating an end to the war. Hamas has repeatedly said it wants any proposal to include essentially a plan for how to end the war in Gaza. So far, none of the proposals have included that. We heard that again from Hamas, in recent days, saying they want the IDF to withdraw from Gaza. They want a clear plan for an end to the war, while the Israelis are saying that Hamas must be eliminated. So clearly, two things at odds there. We'll have to wait and see. The U.S. certainly pushing for that deal to get done, so hostages can be released, so Palestinian prisoners can also be exchanged. But we are hoping for that response in the next 24 hours, Alex.
All right, Inez de la
This
Catera,
is Gaza, Hoop NATO.
And coming up after the break,
not Iran.
One moment it's there, the next it's not. Heavy rains in China trigger the worst flooding and landslides in decades.
Jeez.
Details after the break.
All right, they added on a break. What is this? Oh, this is okay. We'll watch this. Canadian news, but they're talking about
in areas where it's
94 people killed.
The other thing that we've been seeing, in addition to the airstrikes,
These are people that are just waiting to get food.
While trying to get aid. This week, we saw Dr. Marwan Al-Sultan. He's a cardiologist. He was the
Like, I don't know how anyone can watch this and not think that this is just gross.
Gaza, one of the biggest hospitals in the territory. He and several members of his family killed in an Israeli airstrike. We heard afterwards from his daughter, and she really just made a plea for peace, a plea for a ceasefire and a permanent end to the war in Gaza. So while this talk of ceasefire is going on, the violence in Gaza still continues. Tom Perry, CBC News, Jerusalem.
Al Jazeera. Oh, they're talking about Gaza.
Site and did not target individuals.
trying to see if I mean, obviously the American news is going to be concentrated on the big beautiful bill, but
The yeas are 218, the nays are 214. The motion is adopted.
The bill makes tax cuts signed under Trump's first term permanent and reduces spending on welfare and public health care. It also sets aside hundreds of billions of dollars more for the US military and border enforcement. Republicans say the bill ends wasteful spending and will make the US wealthier and safer. But Democrats say it punishes the poor and rewards the rich while ballooning.
I would like to actually find someone that is like a neutral,
Democrats in the House, Hakeem Jeffries, has
I don't know, accountant, economist, or whatever that could actually like say this is exactly what it's doing. It's
What you
is it
effectively are doing.
is it giving a tax break to the ultra rich, or is that bullshit?
Hurting children, hurting women, hurting
Need someone that's like
older
nonpartisan.
Americans, seniors, people with disabilities. Nursing homes will close. Hospitals will shut down. Community-based health clinics unable to operate. We're actually here debating legislation, Mr. Speaker, that will result in tens of thousands of everyday Americans losing their lives.
Well, the passage of the bill could have major implications for congressional elections next November. Shieva Tanzi reports now from Washington, D.C.
There was a ring in the, I could hear somebody's phone in the video. I thought that was my phone.
They do actually reflect the two types of opposition we had in the Republican Party. Those who feel it's adding too much to the deficit, $3.4 trillion to the federal deficit over the next 10 years, and those who are worried about the slashing of the social safety net. Some 12 million who are projected to lose their health care benefits by the end of the next decade, according to the Congressional Budget Office. The White House says that isn't true. It now goes to Donald Trump's desk for a signing on Friday on the 4th of July, exactly what he had hoped for. The Democrats, however, feel that even though they are genuinely opposed to the slashing of the social safety net, they can run on this pretty effectively in the midterm elections next year. They think many of those who will lose their health benefits and their food stamps will be in Republican states. So they're hoping to make gains and are now even more optimistic about success in the midterm elections, which would make Donald Trump potentially a lame duck president. But then that's why there was so much packed into this bill, not just the extension of the tax cuts, the cutting of the welfare safety net, the social welfare safety net.
For the Americans in chat, is the midterms that are next year, is that for, I'm trying to remember how it works in the U.S. Is it 1/3 of the people that are elected is in office, or is it everyone? For some reason, I think I remember somebody saying that it's 1/3 of the elected officials are up for election. Is that correct? And is it governors and it's governors, right?
Diamond is director of the Center for Tax and Budget
One of you
Policy
guys
at
can tell
Rice
me.
University's Baker Institute, and he says the bill will increase America's debt significantly.
The bill does some good things and it does some bad things. Long term, it's likely to raise GDP by about 0.3%. But unfortunately, it also raises the debt to GDP ratio significantly from about 100% to about 125%. If you add that to CBO's projections of the debt going forward, the U.S. could reach a debt to GDP level of 186% by 2055 with this bill in place. The more debt that the government takes on, that increases the interest payments that you have to make on the debt every year, and the U.S. is already paying over $1 trillion per year in interest, and this will definitely increase that significantly. And second, the market for debt, it includes the government and it includes private companies and private individuals. And the larger...
Okay, but is it all governors and Congress seats or just 1/3? Crazy koala. I can't remember. For some reason, I seem to recall that it's not everyone. It's just like a portion of them every 2 years or something.
To finance all its debt. it leads to higher interest rates. Something had to be done. The things I liked were the permanent incentives for investment, allowing deductions for research and development expenditures, so we have more innovation and more growth in GDP. I think reducing the tax rates on capital and wage income were important.
Well, let's take this all on with Alan Tonelson, who's an economist and founder of Reality Check, which is a blog covering economics, national security and tech. Joins us live from Washington, D.C. Alan, great to have you with us. So we have this, a major win in the end for Donald Trump. And now, in his effort to convince the American people of the efficacy of this bill, what will he point to, do you think, as to its merits?
I think he's going to point to two.
You think it's all of them?
To three major achievements. First,
so every 2 years they're up for election?
The previous guest mentioned there are major increases in funding for American border security. That's an enormously popular cause among the American people. There are significant increases in U.S. defense spending, which I think it'll be an easy sell for Mr. Trump to argue that we are living in an increasingly dangerous world, especially considering how quickly Chinese military spending and overall Chinese military capabilities have been growing. And third, I think that that contrary to the very emphatic Democratic charges about draconian
6-year term,
cuts to
okay.
the social safety net, the social safety net is actually going
yeah,
to continue
I think
growing.
Sorry, I think that's correct because it's a 6-year term, but every 2 years it's 1/3 of them are up for election. So then that way, over the course of 6 years, they've all been through their election cycle. I think that's how it works.
What's not going between voting for a candidate who promises to do various things and living in a country when those things actually take place. But I would say that both politically and economically and in terms of national security, so far so good for President Trump and for the Republican Party.
All right. Well, just explain something. If this bill is as beneficial as you and many people say, why is it that so many Republicans didn't see it that way and had to have their arms twisted and some say political careers threatened to get it through?
Well, certainly there is a big, very small government faction in the Republican Party, especially on Capitol Hill. But I think that libertarian or quasi-libertarian or very small government faction is much smaller among the American people, and it's also much smaller among so-called MAGA Republicans. So that politically speaking, again, I don't think President Trump has very much to worry about concerning his own right flank.
Republicans own every part of this bill, don't they? Because not a single Democrat voted for it. So if things do go awry, there would be trouble ahead because the Dems will be looking to hold to account in a big way, wouldn't they?
Well, certainly when politicians promises make and when achievements.
Here's another question for the Americans. If the Democrats win both the Senate and the House, can they pass laws? Can they unravel this bill with Trump not being able to do anything about it? Or does Trump still have say?
Americans vote both
If
in the
2026
midterms
scenario,
and also
if
the
that scenario
2020
happened.
general election, they are not only going to be voting for or against whoever succeeds President Trump as the Republican nominee and various Republican legislators, they're going to be voting for or against his Democratic opponents. And so far, I think it's quite fair to say they really haven't shown us very much in terms of credible, viable alternatives to these Trump policies.
In the event, of course, there were only 2 objections within the Republican Party. And, at one point we were thinking that the bill might not pass at all. So that just goes to show the hold that Donald Trump has over GOP.
Well, that's exactly right. But we have to remember that presidential arm twisting over legislation certainly didn't start with President Trump. Lyndon Johnson was a very effective arm twister. His opponents complained about his tactics bitterly. His backers loved them, and they gave us some pretty considerable achievements, like American civil rights.
He could veto stuff.
So
Really? He can actually just veto it? That's crazy, actually.
To have you with us, good to get your perspective. Appreciate that.
So if the people's the people that are representing the people voted to bring in a law, he can just veto it and say, no, we're not doing this?
US and Colombia will tell you why they've recalled their ambassadors. Japanese car manufacturers fear they could soon hit a roadblock if trade tensions.
Okay, we're gonna shift down to another.
Evidently, though, they were denied.
This is back to Alligator Alcatraz. Hey, that looks better than my room, actually.
Not yet said how many. The lawmakers were incensed that in a rainstorm on the day the president visited, that was Tuesday, water began seeping in through the bottom of the tents.
Oh, man.
State Rep Michelle Rayner asked, if it's not safe for lawmakers, why would it be safe for the people who are being held there? Those lawmakers say there are serious questions as to how safe the facility is and how much it's going to cost, with the federal government now saying
she can, but it would never happen, Poop NATO.
In a legal brief, the state says they plan to seek reimbursement.
Technically she can, but technically she's also just a figurehead. She's not, doesn't really have any power.
Reimbursement is unknown.
Hundreds of millions of public dollars being spent on a political stunt, that we have the ability to see for our own eyes what is happening.
But my question is it likely that Trump would veto it if the House and the Senate passed a bill that he didn't like?
Out contracts to his friends to build what is essentially a concentration camp.
Then they're going to be dumped in the Alligator Alcatraz immigrant detention camp and then sent back maybe to a country that's not even their country of origin.
Right.
We know that this is cruel. It's inhumane. It's totally un-American. Right. And we should be reflecting on that as we enter the 4th of July holiday.
The migrants being taken there will have been arrested under the cooperation agreements that the governor has approved between county sheriff's offices and ICE. They're going to be housed in tents that the state says can withstand 110-mile-an-hour winds, and they'll also be guarded by 1,000 staff members, or at least accompanied by 1,000 staff members, and then guarded by 400 security guards. The tents are air-conditioned, while water and food will be trucked in, and sewage will be trucked out. As for the water that got in during Tuesday's storm, the state said the vendors went back and tightened any seams at the base of the structures that allowed the water intrusion during the heavy storm. They say, though, that intrusion was minimal at this point. Back to you.
Yeah, it looked like those setups somewhat flimsy, and you can imagine why the Wanderer got in that way. And this is not necessarily anywhere close to Tampa, several hours down the coast there. Have we seen other protesters?
About 200 miles or so.
Okay. Have we seen other protesters?
So if the president vetoes it, then they could take it to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court could overrule the president?
Well, it's more than a little bit out of the way. We're talking,
interesting. It's an interesting system.
Alley Road on 75 there as it becomes 95 and comes back up around the east coast of Florida. It's, maybe 30, 40 miles south of that. So it's definitely in the furthest south area of the mainland of Florida. And, there's a lot of people gathering there on a daily basis. Right now, this is one of the biggest stories in the country. President Trump was there on Tuesday, so that attracted a lot of attention. There certainly are protesters there. There are members of the Miccosukee tribe who go there and say that land is sacred for them. They're disappointed.
Oh, by the way, Poop NATO, it is not the Queen that signs new laws. There's a king now, and it's not the king that signs the laws either. It's what's called the Governor General. So the Governor General is our representative from Canada to England, basically, and essentially, it's just a figurehead that is appointed by the Prime Minister to basically, I guess it's through tradition that if we have new laws, the Governor General is supposed to take it to the Queen or the King or whatever, and have them go, okay, yeah, okay, sure. In reality, though, that doesn't happen. The Queen or King or whatever would never even read the bill. The Governor General is just put in place as to someone that is to protect the country, to make sure that again, it's just basically a bullshit position. So this person that is appointed by the current Prime Minister would just basically sign it into law. It's got nothing to do with the king or the queen.
Built, and there's lots to get eaten. And so that was one of the main
Get eaten? Who?
attractions of this site, is that it's surrounded on many sides by swamp, and that swamp is filled with tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, of alligators and pythons and other dangerous beings. You know, it's almost deceptive when you go through Alligator Alley and you drive, down through east-west there or west-east on I-75. You see the grass coming out of the water there, but it looks as though you almost could be fooled into thinking it's flat ground, but really it's water that you're looking at, and it goes for as far as the eye can see. So at least when you're in that part on 75 going through Alligator Alley. So it's a beautiful part of the state. It's a one-of-a-kind part of the state, and that's part of the reason that lawsuits have been filed, because they say that any intrusion on that part of the state, building a community in essence of 3,000 people, 4,000 people, if you include the staff members there, that is going to change irrevocably that site. The state says, hey, the water is being trucked in, the food is being trucked in, and then everything is being trucked out. They say it's a temporary site, but of course they haven't given a deadline as to how long that site is going to be operational for.
Yeah, that's a good descriptor, and it's obviously some of the concern of those Democratic lawmakers, also the inhumane nature that these alligators potentially playing guards in terms of this temporary facility.
Guards.
Why is it? So much. I appreciate your insight here on live.
Why is it this guy's mic is so garbage? Like, honestly, like everyone that he interviews, their sound is way better, but this guy, I don't know, it sounds like he's in a box.
Familiar with the Alcatraz in San Francisco, now this one being dubbed Alligator Alcatraz for those similar but different natural barriers around it, with the alligators, the pythons, the different mountain lions, black bears, sharks, as we spoke to different wildlife experts about that. Let's take you right now out to some of those lawmakers.
Very tall head, yeah.
And their concerns.
Doesn't it sound weird? Like,
admission into this facility in order to inspect the conditions. We believe the conditions to be inhumane, and we're going to invite you to come with us. But before we do that, I do want my colleagues to have an opportunity to introduce themselves. Go ahead, Representative.
Mr. Dress Up? I don't know if it is or not.
Escamani, probably serving District 42 in the Florida Legislature in the Orlando area. That's A-N-N-A. Last name is E-S-K-A-M-A-N-I.
All right, just listening in there to this as Florida lawmakers denied access to the facility in Alligator Alcatraz as migrants have officially arrived at this temporary detention facility. I'm Andy Mack. We're back after this.
All right.
Elon, but honestly, when we focus on today, Alex, I think Speaker Mike Johnson actually made the best point. Speaking on Capitol Hill, he said this was perhaps the most important vote of their lifetimes, and that history will remember how they voted. He's actually right, but see, here's the thing. Johnson said this from a place of excitement. I think many Americans will hear those words from a place of concern. The passage of this bill will impact every American's everyday life. Yes, the big businesses, the manufacturers, the highest income Americans will benefit from this, but I think about the other side of the coin, the lower income Americans, hospitals, clean energy, and arguably the most important demographic that helped President Trump recapture the presidency were voters less than $50,000. Many of those same voters, and now it appears that same demographic is suffer from the backlash of this bill, and life as we know it and the means of survival are about to change for every American.
All right, I know this is a discussion that could probably go on for another half an hour, but we gotta end it there. Christina, Ramesh, Justin, and Tiffany, I want you to stick around because coming up in our spotlight, we're gonna change gears here. A major setback for Sean Diddy Combs, the music mogul, is back behind bars after being denied bail. Our panel will weigh in on that.
Wait, what? Didn't he get only charged with like prostitution?
What does it take?
How long is he going to spend in jail for that?
Watched newscast in America.
Less commercials. That's what it's going to take. Let's see what else we got here, guys. See what else we got going on here. Here's the truce for Gaza.
Crimes have been committed by Israel
throughout this war, just as Hamas committed war crimes in Israel on October 7th. Israel's been committing war crimes in Gaza, and recently this Gaza Humanitarian Foundation that's been delivering aid with the assistance of drug lords and militias, gangsters, who've been supported by Israel in order to deliver aid. And we've seen, as your report said, more than 500 deaths of people going to get aid, going to get food. This travesty has to end. This war has to end. The Palestinian people need to get their house in order, get ready to rebuild. And I think that the conclusion for everyone
Had
has
us,
to be
yeah,
that there is no viable
they
armed
were
struggle
talking
in
about
this
that
conflict
earlier.
anymore. There is no strategy where one side could win in this war. We have all lost in this war. The Palestinian people have lost big time. Hamas committed collective national suicide on October 7th without asking the Palestinian people, is this what they want? And I think that everyone is licking their wounds now and needs to come back home and make reassessments on where we're heading. Because there is only one viable solution to this conflict, and that's the two-state solution with the creation of a peaceful Palestinian state next to Israel.
In other news, firefighters in Greece have been battling wildfires fanned by gale force winds near Athens and on the island of Crete, where thousands have been forced to flee their homes and holiday resorts. Separate blazes in neighbouring Turkey, which has been spared from the heat waves that have gripped southern Europe, have
Any of you guys in Europe still getting? You guys still have the heat waves?
Flames engulf southern Crete's arid hills, charring farmland and choking the sky with thick smoke. Near the resort town of Alcatraz, some 230 firefighters and 10 water-bombing helicopters fight the inferno as terrified
They need some
tourists
Canadian
and
water
locals are
bombers over there.
evacuated from hotels and homes.
We were at the balcony. We saw
Although we
the
need them
first
here
flame,
right now as well.
which
So
become bigger at a very short time.
It was very scary. We're from Denmark. We don't have this wildfire in our country.
The fast-moving wildfires pushed by
that's what
gale
Nixon
force
sounds
winds
like.
broke out Wednesday night, leaving damaged homes and businesses, farm animals burnt alive, and air saturated with ash. Authorities declared a state of emergency in the area of Alcatraz and warn of a high risk of fires on Friday. Greece, dubbed a wildfire hotspot, faces frequent blazes during dry and hot summers, with fires becoming more destructive year on year. Scientists warn this year's early heat wave is fueled by warming seas trapping a dome of hot air over Europe. Earlier this week, a blaze broke out in northern Greece, and this Thursday afternoon,
There we
a
go.
new fire erupted in an Athens suburb, intensifying the crisis. Neighbouring Turkey has also faced devastating wildfires this week, forcing the evacuation of villages as the country continues to grapple with annual heat waves and prolonged droughts in the face of climate change.
At least 79 people have been arrested during anti-government protests in Serbia. Police, some in riot gear, moved in to break up street blockades in several cities. Students leading the rally say security forces charged and injured scores of peaceful demonstrators. The protest movement began last November after a canopy at a renovated railway station collapsed in Novi Sad, killing 16 people and triggering allegations of corruption-fueled negligence in state infrastructure projects. A walkout by French air traffic controllers has been disrupting travel and holiday plans for tens of thousands of passengers across Western Europe. They're protesting against understaffing and toxic management. The two-day
Toxic
strike has forced
management?
airlines to cancel hundreds of flights
I should go on
amid
strike.
warnings that the situation is likely to deteriorate further on Friday. Luke Schrago has more.
The heat wave may be over, but at Paris's airports, tempers are still running hot, with a strike by air traffic controllers disrupting the travel plans of thousands. This family should have been on its way to Slovenia.
The little one hasn't stopped crying. We can't push our flight back.
It's really complicated because we're traveling with
Calling
my
them
own
peaceful
3 kids
protesters,
and my
they're
sister's
literally
2 as well.
rioting. Well,
They keep telling us to call a phone
did you see them rioting? I don't know, that looked like a riot.
all over the seats, bothering people, pushing the trolleys and so on. It's a complete mess.
A quarter of all flights out of all Paris's airports have been cancelled on Thursday.
Not all
and that
protests
rises to
are riots,
40%
you
on
know.
Friday. Airports in southern France are badly affected too, with 30% of flights
We have
from
peaceful
Lyon,
protests
Marseille,
here
and
all the
Ajaccio
time.
cancelled, and half in Nice and
They're not
Bastia.
damaging
For those trying to get home, creative thinking is required.
We're going to try and take
They're not damaging stuff as they go by. They're just walking down the streets carrying flags and signs.
Several airlines and France's transport minister have called the situation unacceptable. At the heart of the strike, two unions demanding better working conditions and criticizing toxic management and a new clock-in system in control towers, which means less flexible scheduling. That's unacceptable for controllers who seem ready to go the distance to get their way.
If the situation isn't dealt with, like how it hasn't been dealt with for the last several years, then this
In the
strike
entire
is
type
going
of
to
protest,
continue,
there's some
and then
people
we're going
that
to end up with
they
a
are
major
just
industrial
genuinely
dispute.
looking for problems, but
Airlines
it's
are
not the
keeping
majority
passengers
people.
informed of continuing cancellations should they be affected.
Tributes are pouring in for the Liverpool and Portugal player from across the world of football
Oh,
and beyond. Diogo
We already watched
Jota
this. Not that I'm. Let's see. Press.
Intimidates them, and he broke through.
We watched that. ABC News is back.
I don't think any of us know.
Here's the
But
Diddy
there
trial.
will be a long-term stain on his legacy, and he was found guilty of some charges. And I think the domestic violence videos that we saw were, just totally shameful, and something that I think a lot of people reject ever being around around P. Diddy, or uplifting his music or his work in the future just because of that video.
Well, and Justin, listen, we recognize that this case played out at a very specific time, but I'm curious with this split verdict, when you evaluate, Cassie's role in this. I mean, what's going to be the takeaway, and how is the
He has
landscape
prostitution charges, yeah, but I'm wondering how much jail time he'll get for that.
This is a landmark moment.
You gonna get a slap on the wrist?
In terms of that discussion. Now, the real question is, will any real change come from it? And honestly, I don't have that much confidence, because I understand the history of the music industry and how it's really ran, and how women have often been negative muses in the music industry, and we've seen that through Cassie's accounts and Jane's accounts.
All right, we'll have to leave it there. Christina, Ramesh, Justin, and Tiffany, thank you. And please stick around, because coming up in our last call, now you can make that margarita to go in some places. More states with new liquor laws on tap. Supporters call it convenient. Opponents say it's more dangerous. The drinking debate, that's up next.
It's like Las Vegas everywhere. You can just drink walking up and down the street.
The news never stops.
From Tampa, we are.
All right, we're going to go down to
our tipped workers, something I support. It will lower taxes on Social Security, something I
up to
support.
10 years per count, 20 years total. I bet he gets time served, since they
These are all pieces of legislation
denied his
that could have
bail.
been
So
done
how,
standalone
like,
measures
that's
that
all
would
he's
have
going to
had
get? Like, he's
overwhelmingly
just the time that he spent in jail,
in the
and then that's it? He's going to
And
walk?
So what I say is that there are provisions that will be better, but they will be more than offset, unfortunately. And I'm sorry to report to your viewers here that provisions that gut healthcare, the largest cut to healthcare in American history, provisions that transfer wealth, the biggest wealth transfer in American history from the middle class to billionaires, will not help them. Increases to energy costs will not help them. Taking away
This
food
Fox
benefits will
News
not
guys
help
just
working
look at him like,
class
yeah, okay,
Americans.
okay,
And
sure,
as
yeah.
Representative Massey said, the largest debt increase in American
Yeah,
history.
okay,
We're
keep
saddling
going.
our young people with debt that is
Okay,
really,
Democrat, keep going.
overwhelming and unsustainable. So there's some really poison pills in this legislation, which is why I joined two Republicans and all the Democrats in opposing this measure.
Yeah, this bill was in jeopardy late last night. Of course, we saw all the rules vote, and then coming in today. And one of those people on the fence was Representative Andy Harris from the Maryland delegation. Did you have any conversations with him about potentially voting no, or why he voted yes ultimately?
I did not talk to Representative Harris about this particular vote. I know that he voted present the last time around, and I think that he and the Freedom Caucus had legitimate concerns about what this bill does to the debt and the deficit in America. And so, what's really hard for me to fathom is the ways in which we are making those cuts to healthcare. We are making those cuts to food benefit programs. We're taking away programs that actually help make energy costs go down. And at a time and in a way where we're seeing disproportionately the tax benefits are going to the ultra wealthy, the middle class are seeing little to no relief on taxes. And actually, those who are the least among us in terms of earning are going to actually see tax increases under this bill. So unfortunately, did not see Representative Harris on the floor much. We've been coming and going. It's been a long 48 hours sort of straight, but I'd have to defer to him in terms of his reasoning for ultimately voting for the bill.
And before we talk about some of those impacts on
I
Americans,
still can't get
do
over
wanna
the
take us
sound
back to
quality of
earlier
his
on
mic.
this morning, because it was House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries that spoke for 8+ hours on the floor to delay some of these votes. And of course, that was the longest House speech of all time in terms of that. Do you think that should have moved the needle, if at all?
I think the provisions of the bill should have moved the needle, quite candidly. And the fact that this is being moved so quickly speaks volumes to what we already know. That this
Someone
is
earlier was
deeply
saying it was
unpopular with
1,000
the American
pages.
people. Actually, a Fox News poll showed that this legislation is more than 20 points underwater. And it only gets less popular as the American people learn more and more about the specific provisions of this legislation. And so I actually applaud Leader Jeffries for his work. I literally and figuratively was standing with him on the floor because I think it's important. We have an obligation as representatives in Congress to tell our constituents what legislation does. And again, I come at this as work as someone who, before coming to Congress, led a county where 4 Democrats and 3 Republicans were on my county council. I was a county executive. Everything we did was bipartisan, and Congress has to get back to that place where we are not saddling this debt, taking away critical lifelines for Americans, and doing so in a hyper-partisan way. I don't think that's what the American people ultimately want to see from us.
And you mentioned just some of the opposition and some of the potential
1,116
Medicaid,
pages.
SNAP, other
And I'm
benefits
sure they've
for
all
the
read
less
every
fortunate
single page.
Americans. I do want to ask you about what the Democrats are doing next, because obviously midterms not that far away. Is there a game plan? Is there a blueprint that you're trying to do to change some of that, to move different things, like you mentioned, some of those standalone parts of this that would benefit Americans?
For sure. And I will say, unfortunately, the people who are on Medicaid and who rely on things like CHIP for our children and who rely on those food benefits through SNAP, they're going to see the worst of it. But even those of us who are lucky enough to have private insurance, we're going to see premiums go up by hundreds, if not thousands of dollars. We're going to see access to care be reduced. It's going to be harder to find care. It's going to be of less quality. Just today, we saw a hospital in Nebraska, a rural hospital, announced that in advance of these cuts to Medicaid, they were going to have to close their doors. So these cuts affect all of us, even if we're not reliant on these critical lifelines. In terms of a game plan, I'm going to do what I always do, and I'll just speak for this Democrat. My job is to engage my constituents and tell them what's in this bill. And I think for all Democrats, we both have to talk about why we oppose this legislation and also talk about a proactive working class plan that does things like lower housing costs, creates more affordable childcare. Because, we've been in Congress now 181 days. The number one issue when I ran for Congress was lowering costs. It was the president who promised to lower costs on day one. And unfortunately, we're seeing the opposite. We have done nothing to affirmatively lower costs. And again, as we talked about, through insurance premiums, through energy costs, through lack of support, through taxation distribution that's going to go disproportionately to billionaires and the ultra wealthy, we're seeing the opposite of that in this legislation, unfortunately.
And we heard from President Trump as he was boarding Air Force One to head to Des Moines, talking about how his power, his sway has increased. And we've seen different Republicans, Tom Tillis on the Senate side, Don Bacon from Nebraska, a state that obviously you just mentioned as well, saying they will not seek a re-election. Do you think this is a dangerous precedent to set in terms of some of the Republicans bowing out after they oppose this kind of bill?
Again, I think that tells us everything that we need to know, that the Republicans who showed that they were willing largely to oppose this bill, the 2 names you mentioned in particular, are also those who then announced that they were not seeking re-election. And so I think we have to ask ourselves and let the American people ask, why is it that when people are willing to stand up, they have to also step away? That's not what I think the American people want. I think they want to see bipartisanship. They want to see us working together. And the fact that both of those representatives had to couple their announcement of opposing this bill, there were also dozens of legislators who signed letters that said they were going to oppose anything that cut Medicaid.
$550 a month?
Bill was worse than the House. Speaker Johnson's own legislature, which is over.
I've even heard people that say that they pay even more than that. Like, are you self-employed, Cheesy?
Overwhelmingly Republican. Actually, in a very rare sign of unity, passed a bipartisan resolution condemning the cuts to Medicaid and talking about how devastating it would be. So these are not just Democrats in Congress talking about the concerns here. These are members of Congress who are Republicans. These are hospital associations. These are state legislatures that, again, are not democratically led. They are Republican led, because people know that if these cuts take effect, it's going to be problematic. And I think it's incumbent upon us to share that with the American people as we move into the next election cycle.
Me to get the coverage to fully kick in. No, I work for an employer with 15,000 employees. So, I thought health insurance not part of like your employment with them? Like, I always thought that you didn't have to pay for your health insurance. That was just part of your like working for the company. You're telling me that you got to pay $550 a month for your health insurance?
He is someone who was in a
Even though it's
hospital
part
for
of work?
400 days. He was born about 2 pounds.
So you have to pay for your health insurance, and then you have to pay for your deductible when you go and have anything done. That is insane. Like, what is the point of the insurance? So, if, like, from what I understand, if you were to have, how much would you have to pay out of pocket if your wife had another kid? Like, after your insurance coverage and stuff like that, like, what do you have to pay on top of that if you want to have another kid?
Was able to bounce back. The ways in which Amir is tackling life, I think we have an obligation as leaders to be out there for communities like the one I grew up in, and for our young people like Amir.
Thank you for sharing that story. And obviously, resiliency is a good theme, especially as we head toward the 4th of July holiday. That certainly rings true. All right, Congressman, thank you so much for joining us here on Live Now from Fox. I appreciate your insight and your perspective.
Thanks for having me, and a happy 4th of July to all there.
All right, thank you so much. All right, great conversation.
Can we buy this guy a mic?
That big, beautiful bill passes through the House today by a very slim margin, 218 to 214. All the Democrats joined by a pair of Republicans, that being Thomas Massey and Brian Fitzpatrick from Pennsylvania and Kentucky most recently. So let's take you now out to some of those lawmakers, including Andy Harris from Maryland, speak about this bill as he did vote president, and then he voted for this today. Let's listen into this briefly here on Live Now.
Put this package together and said, yeah, this is a very good Republican product. It's going to move the president's agenda forward. It's going to actually seriously deal with spending. And, of course, not provide a tax increase for middle-class Americans.
But, sir, are these agreements in writing? You were a no yesterday.
That's right.
Yep. And after some meeting at the White House, all of a sudden there were a bunch of people who were yes. The public can read the bill, but the public
2000.
has no idea what got you all from no to yes. So is it?
Wow.
Right. So, I mean, what would you say to people who are wondering how you changed?
They know the reputation of the Freedom Caucus. The reputation is we've been fighting for fiscal restraint for 10 years now.
19,000 if you don't have insurance.
We were going to oppose the bill. I was going to vote no.
You don't have any kids.
These agreements we came to last night,
it's too expensive to have them.
On this bill. These agreements are significant. It'll become obvious over the next few months how we've got the administration to move in a direction that mitigates a lot of the issues with the Senate bill.
Will they be executive actions?
Well, they have to be executive actions.
The public is going to have to wait months for this, then?
I think the president's only 6 months into a 4-year term.
This is a huge $1 trillion package, though. There's a ton of money in here. You're not going to reveal anything to the public about what some of these concessions may be.
Did I say there was $1 trillion in the package?
It's a huge amount of money in here.
Where?
In this spending bill that you
the spending bill is public.
I'm just asking you, to Joe's point, what should the American people think of the fact that you're not saying what the president and what the agreement was?
Because the agreement is with the president. If you want to know, ask the president.
How likely is there to be a second reconciliation bill?
I'm sure. Look, there's likely to be a second and third reconciliation bill. There would not be as significant. Obviously, we may have to clean up some matters of budgetary
Major surgery with her kidneys. After all was said and done, we paid $18,000 in bills for it.
Budgets leading to reconciliations bills are a normal part
That's
of the process.
crazy, man.
That we will have a budget, for the next fiscal year at some point, and included in that.
No one even knows where the spending is going or what it's for. Our government's a clown show.
But, our opinion is that this,
like, why
this
it's crazy how like
secretive
it is,
in a reconciliation
how confusing they've made it, like deliberately
bills are
confusing.
much less significant than this bill. And they have to be.
The speaker said that the president took calls late into the night. 1 o'clock in the morning. Were you one of those individual members
I never spoke to the president. We obviously dealt with the White House staff. We came to agreements that are significant mitigations of the problems with the Senate bill.
As a fiscal conservative, somebody who cares about deficits, there's, I think, upwards of $60 billion in this package for ICE and for border security.
Yes.
Given that President Trump has been touting the fact that border encounters have almost dropped to nothing, did you need to spend $60 billion or more on ICE?
We still have, by some estimates, between 10 and 15 million people who came into this country illegally under the last administration. They have to be dealt with. They have to be adjudicated. We have to look at the record. We have to see how many of them are deportable and should be deported. We need to deport them. The bottom line is the American people understand it is very cost effective to keep people out of this country, to keep them off our welfare system, to keep them off our streets, to keep them off the public dole. And the most effective way is just don't have them enter the country in the first place illegally.
Is there a scenario where you could regret voting for this?
Where I could regret voting for this? No.
Congressman, what would you say to your constituents who watched the condensed legislative timeline and are wondering, did they rush through this?
We have been working on this since January.
But you only had the second version just a couple days ago.
This is a process that started in January with a $300 billion offer on the table for spending reduction. It ended up with $1.5 trillion, not including the, I will call side agreements that will yield even more significant savings. I think that, how long do we want the process to take? I mean, at some point you have to say, we're going to call for the vote. We think that achieving $1.5 trillion in deficit in spending reduction is actually pretty significant. It's by far the largest spending reduction to a mandatory program ever proposed, and we did it without touching core functions. What do I mean by that? Everyone's, well, 17 million people are going to be through. I don't know where they come with these numbers for Medicaid. Yeah, 1.4 million people, illegal aliens in this country, are probably going to stop receiving Medicaid. All right, that's what the American people expected after the last election, that we are going to stop giving illegal aliens in this country illegally public benefits. Millions of those people are able-bodied Americans put on Medicaid. Remember, Medicaid was meant. And, when I was a physician, I took care of lots of Medicaid patients. I worked in East Baltimore in Maryland. Half of my patients were Medicaid patients. They were the elderly, the disabled, pregnant women, the children. Obamacare put healthy people, healthy young adults on that roll, able-bodied adults without dependents on that roll, and then gave a larger federal cost share to take care of those people on the rolls. If someone is on those rolls and they're able-bodied and they choose not to work, Americans overwhelmingly agree that they should not be on the public dole. Yes, they will lose their Medicaid benefits, and they may have to go out and get a job. I think both of those are not improper, and I think both of those would be agreed to by the majority of Americans.
They'd have to go out and get a real job. They can't be full-time streamers anymore.
This package did a lot of things, I think, to affect waste, fraud, and abuse in both the SNAP program, and where you have states where, imagine, up to 60% of people in some states, and it varies, but the highest state is 60% of people are getting an improper payment. And they're getting an improper payment of federal tax dollars. And until we passed this bill, no one was paying attention to that. That's pretty important. The average American is like, really? You are sitting by while states, wealthy states, my state.
I don't really have too much of a problem with able-bodied people having to get a job in order to get medical benefits.
And the federal government stood by and did nothing. That's egregious. I mean, that's the kind of thing that's the kind of reason that Americans hired President
I don't know that I really have too much of a problem with that.
Waste, fraud, and abuse. And if the
I have a big problem with people that are on social benefits that don't need to be.
The fact of the matter is, if it's occurring in a program that is supposed to deliver for the truly...
Yeah, get your ass off and get a job. I think we can all agree on that. Like, that's...
delivers it to states where they're not paying attention to who actually should be on the program and who shouldn't be on the program. I mean, I just think that's an improvement.
Congressman, when you talk about health care,
yeah.
A lot of working people.
All right, you're just listening in there. Andy Harris talking after this one.
All right, now back to
passes. We did speak to Maryland delegation, a Democrat, Johnny Olszewski,
just a little bit ago talking about the opposition to this, but it heads to President Trump's desk. He'll sign it tomorrow at 5 o'clock Eastern on the 4th of July. I'm Andy Mack. We're back after this.
Yeah, I mean, I've been working basically full time since I was 18 as well. Like, I don't have a problem with telling people you gotta get your ass up
just a
and
little bit, but not enough for
and get a
this
job.
to raise any flags regarding inflation. What does this report mean?
Guys,
for the Federal Reserve's upcoming meeting?
I gotta
on
go take a
interest
piss.
rates?
I'll be right
Most
back.
say it's going to mean that the Fed can take this wait and see attitude, that they are not in any rush to cut interest rates because the overall economy, the job market in particular, seems to be holding up despite all of the economic uncertainty. Alex?
All right, Alexis, thank you for that. And the Supreme Court will hear an appeal from 2 states looking to uphold bans on transgender student athletes from participating in girls' and women's sports. The cases from West Virginia and Idaho will decide whether the Constitution and the Civil Rights Act prohibit the bans based on an athlete's sex assigned at birth. ABC News senior Washington reporter Devin Dwyer has more on the cases that are going before the nation's highest court.
Yeah, in taking these cases, Alex, the Supreme Court is wading right back into that major cultural debate in this country over the rights of transgender people and where they fit in our society. Just a few weeks ago, the Supreme Court's conservative majority dealt a blow to transgender minors in their pursuit of gender-affirming health care, upholding state bans on certain treatments for minors. Now they will decide whether transgender student athletes can participate in sports consistent with their gender identity. A number of states, 27 states, have passed laws banning the participation of students in sports that is not consistent with their gender assigned at birth. In 2 states, Alex, Idaho and West Virginia, federal courts have put those bans on hold. They have sided with the trans athletes there, saying that they violate the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment. So the justices will hear these cases sometime in the fall, decide them sometime in early 2026, and get back some base level legal judgment on whether there is an equal protection problem by banning these people from participating. We should say that the lawsuits were brought by a number of transgender kids, Becky Pepper Jackson of West Virginia, Lindsay Hecox of Idaho. Both of them are transgender runners, track athletes. In both cases, they are embraced by their communities and their teams. So this wasn't a matter of them being in a dispute with their localities, with their schools or parents. This is really about laws in those states that legislators wanted to impose, kicking them off teams from their participation in those teams. And obviously, this is a hot button issue. A lot of people talking about it. The Trump administration has weighed in, of course, and the justices will too for the first time sometime later this year. Alex?
All right, Devin, I appreciate that. And switching gears here, the 4th of July travel rush is now officially underway, and stormy weather has caused major headaches along the East Coast this week, but that could very well change ahead of the holiday weekend. AAA projects a record 72 million Americans will travel at least 50 miles during this holiday period, with the vast majority traveling by car. ABC's Jacqueline Lee has the latest.
Alex, the national average for a gallon of gas is $3.16. What drivers need to know is that it is going to be packed on the roads. AAA saying more than 61 million people are going to be doing these road trips, so the best thing you can do is to prepare. I mean, wouldn't it be awful to run into car trouble midway through your trip? That's why AAA says get that routine car maintenance ahead of time. They run into issues like dead batteries, flat tires, even locking yourself out of your car, so you want to be prepared. When it comes to the latest at the airports across the country, there are at least 81 cancellations nationwide today, more than 3,000 delays. And according to FlightAware's misery map, Dallas-Fort Worth is the most miserable airport, followed by Miami. But in the grand scheme of things, these cancellations, they are nothing compared to what we saw earlier this week with the weather issues in the Northeast. The best thing you can do is be prepared and be patient. Alex?
Good advice, Jacqueline Lee. Thank you. And ABC News senior meteorologist Melissa Griffin joins me now for the holiday forecast across the country. And Melissa, there's
in Michigan, you have people selling their food cards, buying the most expensive cell phones and gaming systems, and wearing Jordans that cost hundreds of dollars. We need better audits of the system here. I wonder if there'd be a way for you to set up the system so that maybe like think of maybe a bank card, but it wasn't just like maybe it was somehow attached to like your bank card so that your food credits would automatically be put onto your bank card, and then every time you went to go and actually buy food, you'd have to like provide ID or something like I don't know. Like something to better track to make sure people aren't scamming the system. I don't know if that would work, but I mean, people selling their food cards, buying the most expensive cell phones and gaming systems, and wearing Jordans that cost hundreds of dollars. We need better audits of the system. Yeah. He's on tips, and then they can review the video of the store where the card was used. I play games with some of my brother's friends that he graduated high school with. They are all 21 now, and none of them have jobs except my brother who works part-time. It's actually sickening how many people don't work at all and just play games all day long. It is definitely a different different culture than like what I grew up with, dude. Like it is definitely different than like I got it. My first job I got I was 15. And you know why I got it? Because my parents could not afford to send me to Germany on an exchange program that I wanted to go on. And so I had to get a job and basically help pay for it myself. And then they were basically matching anything that I paid. They probably could have afforded it, but they were basically making me go get a fucking job. That is it is different. Like there's definitely has been a big difference in how youth, like right now they're complaining here in Canada that 1/5 of young adults, meaning like 20 years old type of thing, are unemployed, and the far right are trying to blame that on immigrants. I don't think it's because of immigrants. I think it's because they don't get off their fucking ass and go find a job. Like, I don't think it's hard to find a job here, but I think that they're fine with just kind of sitting at home and playing on the fucking internet, looking at their phone all day long or whatever, right? Like, I don't think it's because it's hard for them to find a job. Admittedly, our generation was different. My mom worked her ass off for me and my brother. I learned those values. Yeah, my mom was a single mom as well, dude. My mom was a single mom as well, and like I look at how she had to bust her ass at 3 jobs in order for us to just have a regular home and stuff like that. Wise guy, do you honestly think young people can't find a job? Honestly? It's not hard to find a job. Like McDonald's and Tim Hortons are hiring all the time, dude. That's what I did as a job when I was 18, 19 years old. COVID made it worse. Did you honestly think the mentality of young people today is the same as it was years ago, Wise guy? Some young people think retail service trades are beneath them. They do. They totally do. We all had shitty starting jobs. Yeah, it sucks, but we all went through it. Wise guy, if you think Tim Hortons or McDonald's are only hiring immigrants, you would be sadly mistaken. I know somebody that is he owns a Tim Hortons restaurant. He says he doesn't get anyone else that's actually even applying. The kids of today don't want to have to work fast food. They've had everything hand fed to them. You know, they've grown up just basically sitting at home and playing video games all day. A lot of the kids are stubborn and they think that should all skip the starter jobs and instantly start making $60K a year right away. Yep. It is weird how much social media has played a role in just a lot of things. Even like young people like trying to look cool online, or God forbid they were ever caught in a McDonald's uniform. People complain that immigrants are the ones stealing all the Tim Hortons jobs and shit like that. I mean, they're the ones that are applying to it. Gailey, I'm not going to even argue with this because I know exactly who you are. A kidless old dude that supports immigrants more than your own people. It's actually disgusting to hear you say there's no issues. I didn't say there was no issues. I did say that there's very much a situation within our culture where a lot of kids are just they're not even trying to find work. And I do think that they do need to reduce the number of immigrants that come into the country. I've said that many times on stream if you'd just open up your fucking ears once in a while, but you know, it's not that hard to find a fucking job, dude. It's really not that hard. It's not even that hard to actually fucking get ahead if you're actually really wanting to. Like, you can go to school. Fuck, I went to McDonald's 2 nights ago at like 3 o'clock in the morning. There's one of the employees was outside fucking cleaning up the garbage and shit like that. You know who it was? It was a girl who lives in Surrey that was fucking taking the bus into Vancouver every fucking night and doing the shit fucking job around McDonald's so that she could pay for her education at the college that she's going to. I don't know many people of my kind that would be willing to do that, wise guy. I don't know many of them that would be willing to travel from Surrey to the West End in Vancouver. By the way, for those of you that don't live here, that's probably about an hour minimum on transit to work a shit fucking job cleaning up garbage so that you can pay for university. You know who used to have to do that? Me. But I don't actually know of any of my friends or sisters' kids that would actually be willing to do that in today's age. And they're complaining that they can't find work. Because they wouldn't be willing to do that. Like, I had to work a shit job when I was 15. And I don't know any of my kids or any of my friends' kids or my sister's kids or any of them that would ever fucking even consider working at McDonald's. They would find it too embarrassing. But we all had to do it. And then they complain, oh, I can't find a job. I haven't just been hand-fed a fucking job. My friend the guy that I know that owns a Tim Hortons says he doesn't even get high school students coming in applying for the jobs. They don't even apply. So I don't know how you can, like, people can be upset. Why would it be a waste of their time? Why would they can get hired just like anyone else? In fact, hold on. There is a friend of mine whose kid just did get hired at Tim Hortons. It's in a smaller town, but fuck, when I was 13, I had to deliver newspapers for fuck's sakes. You think 13-year-old kids today would get up at 3 o'clock in the fucking morning to go deliver a newspaper? Fuck's sakes, man. Like, I could not see kids of today getting, like, kids here that live in Vancouver, getting their ass up at 3 o'clock in the morning to go deliver a fucking newspaper. Breaking news, Alice. Supreme Court's paved the way for Trump to deport immigrants to the South Sudan. Great area of the world for them to end up. Is that actually just happening? Let me check Twitter here. Victory in the passing of the big, beautiful bill. AP News. Supreme Court, this is it from NBC News, clarifies that a recent decision does not prevent President Trump from trying to send 8 convicted criminals to South Sudan. A move that had been blocked by federal judge who accused the administration of defying the instructions. Wise guy, do you honestly think, do you know any kids of today that would get up at 3 o'clock in the morning to go deliver newspapers? And you know what? Most of my friends and I had newspaper delivery jobs when we were kids. That was normal. I could never imagine any of my nieces, any of my cousins' kids, any of my friends' kids ever wanting to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning to go deliver newspapers before they had to go to school. Associated Press. I find the recent tweet, and it's not mentioning anything of this. I was a lifeguard. I sat my ass for work. Yeah, that sounds about right, Cushed. Except now you'd be able to be a lifeguard. The kids of today would complain that they wouldn't be able to play on their phone while they're being a lifeguard. You know that would be true. Like if they got a job as a lifeguard, they'd sit there and be playing on their phone, and they'd get in shit for playing on their phone while they were being a lifeguard, and they'd be all pissy about it. I mean, think about it. At the center of all the media is the get-rich-quick jobs. YouTube, OnlyFans, no offense, content creators, Instagram models. It's no wonder kids think that's what I meant earlier when I said that social media is having a very negative effect, I think, on kids today. They seem to think that they take a look at all these social media influencers and that they're super rich and stuff like that, and it's easy to do. Especially if you're a pretty girl and you can just get on OnlyFans and make a ton of money. Like, that's not, that's not physically hard work. Cheesy said, I delivered the newspapers full time for a while right out of high school. I had a good time. I was delivering newspapers, I think, was in my last couple of years of elementary school, my first couple of years of high school, or no, my first year of high school. And then I got a job at McDonald's. Your 18-year-old travels from the Valley to North Vancouver to make the equal rate of 54 an hour. Wait, what? The equal rate of 54? So he's making... Are you telling me that your kid makes $54 an hour? I thought it was hard for them to get a job. What's going on here? Now we've got kids that are making $54 an hour? Like, how the fuck does that happen? I thought these kids were hard up. What are we talking about here? You know what? When I was a kid, C-SPAN wasn't hiring fucking 15-year-olds. Probably not even 18-year-olds. How did he land that job? You did? You had fun? I didn't mind delivering papers. The getting up kind of sucked. Fuck, when I was 14, I had a job in the summertime working for a roofing company where I was tearing off shingles on a roof, and then I had to bundle up all the garbage and help. Like, it was grueling work in the hot sun. I did that for an entire summer for basically the equivalent of like $800. Like, that's what I was doing when I was 14. I don't know many 14-year-old kids, 15-year-old kids that would be willing to do that. I spent my entire summer working on a construction site, shit work, so that I could buy my first computer. That's what every penny went towards. It was like the equivalent of like $1,000 or something like that. So I don't know what I was making an hour, but it was not good money. Like, it was shit money. And I mean, I couldn't even work at McDonald's then, because McDonald's wouldn't hire you if you were 14. You had to be at least 15 to get hired at McDonald's. But I look at the kids today and I'm like, I just don't see them doing that. So when I hear that they're not, they can't get work, I think the main problem is there's a lot of work that they're just like, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. One of the younger kids I know was working at a small grocery store and quit because he had to lift. Jesus Christ. He had to lift boxes. Could you imagine that? I had to lift boxes. Kids don't have to do that anymore, so they don't. Easy choice for them. I mean, I was like back when I was growing up, there were kids that had no choice. Like, they didn't have a choice. Their parents told them to go get a fucking job. But keep in mind, if we backtalk our parents, we get a smack in the face or a slap in the ass. Like, there was no chance in hell when I was 13 years old that I would ever think about talking back to my mom. Like, there's no way that was happening. The real question is, why is college not preparing these younger generations for the workforce? What are they even doing at college anymore? I mean, I think it starts actually before college. Like, you have to start preparing for life before college. Like, how many kids these days don't even know how to fucking open a bank account? Like, you have to learn this stuff and have to learn hard work long before you get to college. And kids these days honestly have it easy. I don't know what it is. I wonder if it's because the parents that are from, like, they're of our generation, if they remember how hard it was for us to grow up, that they want to provide their kids with a much easier life, so that they don't force their kids to go out and have to do this stuff. Like, when I told my parents, hey, I want to go on an exchange program to Germany for a year, they didn't look at me and go, oh, okay, dear, you go ahead, let us know when it is and send us the papers and we'll make sure it's paid. No, they said, okay, go get your ass down to fucking McDonald's and get a job to help pay for it then. Like, that was literally the attitude of parents back when I was a kid. And I think the parents, like, that are now my age, that have kids that were, they're late teenagers or whatever, they're maybe remembering what it was like, and they don't want their kids to have to go through the same thing, when in all honesty, it's probably good if their kids would have gone through the same thing. I was doing my own laundry in my own community when I was 12, but I get it different. Oh, I had to do my own laundry. We had our own chores. We had dishes. I had to mow the lawn. Like, the list went on. And that was on top of my job. Do they even teach? I don't know if they do or not, because I know they taught it in my high school. We had woodworking, metalworking, automotive, and there was one more. I'm trying to remember there was 4 of them. But it was like your basics to learn how to actually fucking, like, build things. I think it was electrical. Yeah, I think it was electrical, actually, because I remember we were making like basic circuits and shit like that. There's not any auto shop or anything like that in our local schools. Really? And all that work you did as a kid, you took the easy way out, and sitting on a computer makes sense. Yeah, but dude, I make good money at my job. Like, I actually learned a skill, became good at my job, and I've been quite successful. I'm not sure what your problem is, wise guy. Like, do you think that I live on, like, food stamps or something? I do this on the computer because I'm able to. Like, I'm not doing this for money. I'm doing this for fun. This is not my career. You know what's even worse? You're watching me. Like, every time somebody makes fun of me for being a streamer, You're the one watching me. All that hard work that you did as a young adult, and all you're doing is just sitting here watching Aladar stream? Fuck. That's fucking... I'm getting paid to watch you? I'm getting paid to sit here and do nothing, and it's not from streaming. You think that I'm... What time is it right now? You think that I'm not getting paid for my job right now, wise guy? Do you think this is what my career is? Or do you think it's just some side hobby? Some side hobby of mine that I do for something to do? Well, I mean, wise guy, how many subs do I have right now? Hold on, let me check, because I actually don't even care. I've 36 subs right now, wise guy. I live in the west end of Vancouver. Do you think that this is my source of income? Honestly? 36 subs. I have roughly 50 viewers right now. Do you honestly think that this is my my source of income, my main source of income? I live in the West End. I have my own, like, I've got my own place. Yeah, I've got a sugar mama. That's what it is. And she's in the other room doing OnlyFans right now. Power couple. She's got my old computer. I've set it up in one of the other rooms, and she's, you know, currently putting her ankles behind her ears on camera. Oh, we have an ad break starting in 30 seconds, guys. So if you need, go grab a drink, something like that. She's in the closet paying the bills. Yeah, she's my sugar mama. Kush figured it out. Kush figured it out. You keep up with the bills? No, I don't actually care if I make a fucking dime off of streaming, dude. Yeah, more ads. I know. I would pose as where was the turning point? It feels like it just happened suddenly. What do you mean? Turning point of what? All that is going on in the world? Oh, I mean, you could say it started 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. When smartphones became commonplace, before you know, when kids were told to just come home when the street lights came on. They were kicked out of the house, told to get the fuck outside and go play, rather than sit on their ass all day at school or on the computer. Who knows? Work ethic seemed to make a big turn during COVID. I think it was before COVID. I honestly think it's a generational thing. And you know what's funny is, like, our parents, like, generation, would say the same thing about our generation, and our generation is saying it now about this new generation of young adults. It maybe it's just been progressively getting worse since like the 30s or something. I don't know. But I do genuinely feel like the work ethic of the majority of the younger generation just isn't there. My place is wild with how many people have their noses in their phones instead of interacting with people around them. Social media is quite antisocial. I mean, there's a lot of people that are banned phone usage in their workplace. Because of how it dramatically reduces production, and it's just overall bad for business. You walk into a restaurant and your waitress is on her phone all the time or something like that, or you go into a place of business and you're ignored because somebody's fucking text messaging and stuff. We were all in house working, and now it's all WFH. Our results have gone down significantly. Can we say for sure? But it would be interesting to see the analytics. I think it's only going to get worse too. Like when robotics and AI start taking over everything, that's the next thing that people have to worry about. Is how is robotics going to like, you're going to have robotics, self-driving cars. Think of how many jobs are going to be lost because of like self-driving cars. How many truckers are going to lose their jobs because of self-driving trucks? And that's coming. Like, that is coming. There's a lot of fucking truckers out there that are, truckers, taxi cab drivers, delivery drivers, whether they're like, Amazon delivery drivers, and they're freaking everywhere. Every time I go out and drive somewhere, I pass by like a dozen Amazon driving, but that's all going to come to an end, and probably really quickly. Like over a very short period of time. They've already got, I think I saw in Texas, they've got self-driving like taxis in Texas already. There's a lot of places that are laying people off, and it's because like AI is taking over. You can get AI to develop programs for you now. There's actually on my TikTok. Now that we're talking about it, hold on. Where's my TikTok? Is it the first video I posted? Hold on. I hate these puzzles. Sorry, I reinstalled my browser, so had to but it's working again now.
Am I the only one who wants kids but
Yes, you're the only one that wants kids. Let's see if it's is it the first video it is too. Check this out. The very first photo I posted on TikTok is literally a self-driving pizza delivery thing that they were testing out here. And I was like, this is how it starts. And it was actually delivering pizzas. There's pizza delivery drivers, jobs gone. The taxi cab companies are like, they've already got self-driving cabs. Waiting for the unattended streamers using AI in chat and on screen animated and interacting with chat. Maybe I'm one of them, Cheesy. I'm not actually a real person. I'm just a human. I'm not even human. I'm just AI that is just interacting with the chat. This was I think I was going to the shawarma restaurant when I saw this, actually. The thing crossed the street too. Like, I sat there and watched it for a while, and I literally actually, like, it went to the traffic light, turned, and then crossed the street at the sidewalk. Like, it was actually going out on, it says it right on the sign, it was going out on delivery. Technically, why do we need lazy people bringing other lazy people food? Something should be definitely be automated. The uptick of the number of people that have food delivery definitely increased during COVID. Like, I think one time I ordered from a restaurant with Uber Eats or whatever it's called, and then I saw the Uber Eats charge, and I was like, that will never happen again. You wonder if the government might step in and say, you know what? What do you mean these aren't jobs, wise guy? These are the types of these pizza delivery jobs. My next job after McDonald's was pizza delivery. DoorDash, Skip, Uber Eats is a scourge. Delivery customer service is involved. People love human contact. You wonder if the government would step in and say, okay, we can't allow robotics to take over jobs. Like, this pizza place that is a few blocks from where I live, it probably employs maybe 8 or 10 drivers. Like, that's 8 or 10 guys that are going to lose their jobs because of this shit. Although I don't know how far this thing would actually go on a delivery. Like, it wasn't moving that fast. It was obviously like a trial thing. Like, the guys that, are driving like 5 or 10 kilometers away, this thing's not going 5 or 10 kilometers. But the Uber Eats thing is a new, kind of relatively new phenomenon. Like, and it's just a kind of a smart business idea, I guess. Because it also kind of like forced restaurants to accept Uber as a delivery option as well. Because if you didn't, people would just say, there's a lot of people that could not be bothered to walk down to a restaurant. They're just like, no, I'll just get an Uber, and it's like 3 blocks away, and they won't go walk down to grab it. Like a downtown area, that thing would be great. This is downtown. For Crazy Koala, this is literally downtown Vancouver where this thing is. It's 2 blocks from where I live. I just got sent home from my KFC dude too late. Companies are really penny pinching more than ever. Scary out there. What if someone jacks it, though? I think there's some sort of a locking mechanism or something like that. I probably got cameras all over it so it can see. But, I mean, this was... When did I post this? So 2020... So almost 3 years ago, I posted this. And it's, I'm going to be honest, I haven't seen one since. I've walked by that Pizza Hut a billion times, and I haven't seen it there since. It was just, they were just testing it out. But it is coming. For sure it's coming. Kind of, But the AI driverless cars, they're going to take over a massive number of jobs. If you think of all the taxi cab, any profession where you could be driving is in trouble. Like, is in trouble probably in the next 5 years. So taxis, probably buses. You're not going to be able to, even the Uber drivers, like, they're not going to be able to compete cost-wise with the taxis. Like, I think they were saying it was like the price to use a taxi with these driverless cars was only like $4.50. I think the fare starts at almost $4 now in Canada. Right? Like there's no human salary involved anymore. You know, they've just got to pay for the maintenance of the vehicles, and these electric vehicles don't have a high maintenance cost. DoorDash also makes you get in a queue to start dashing now. It wasn't like that a couple years ago. You could just punch in. You have to sit there and wait around. There's a ridiculous number of restaurants in the area that I live. And there's certain areas around where there's like, McDonald's or whatever. And you could see easily 10, 20 guys sitting there on bikes waiting for an order to go pick up and deliver somewhere. And, I've talked to a couple of them and asked them how much they make, and it's not good money. It's more than minimum wage, but it's not good money. Yeah, the driverless taxis don't need any breaks, no bathroom breaks, no lunch. Yeah, exactly. So all those jobs, they're in trouble. A robotaxi will inevitably kill someone, and it will cause it to be more expensive. I mean, there's taxis that kill people all the time. They get into accidents themselves as well. A lot of orchards work out here in New Zealand is all going automated. The picking, packing, and storing. Well, there was a guy I was talking to on Twitter. He runs a it's like a drone company, and it's all automated with it's the spraying of the crops and stuff like that. It's all automated with drones now. But I mean, eventually, AI is going to take over a lot of things. Like, eventually, like, why would you pay someone whatever programmers make? But why would you pay a programmer $100,000 a year or whatever they make when you can there's an AI programs that will probably be able to develop the software like instantly in minutes. You know what I mean? There's probably AI programs that can already do that for you in a limited sense, and it's only going to get better. So people that have programming jobs, AI is probably going to take over that. Or jobs looking over like cybersecurity and stuff like that. It's going to hit the economy hard. You're going to have a lot of people that lose their jobs. Actually, Kush, don't you work in like web development, web application development or something like that? Are you worried at all about losing your job? Unless human contact and social changes even more. And at the same time, these ultra rich people are saying, "Oh no, it's going to make your life better." You know, how's it going to make these people's lives better that are going to lose their jobs? We actually use AI. Funny how computers were the way of the future. Now the idiots built what they needed. It's the most unneeded career out there. I don't know that it's unneeded. I don't think that there's computer programmers that are finding it excessively difficult to find a job at the moment. But they may be in 5 or 10 years. AI is going to take your job. Someone using AI is going to take your job. Oh, AI isn't going to take your job. Someone using AI is going to take your job. Yeah, but the fact that it would be so much easier for someone using AI to create these programs, doesn't that also just mean that you wouldn't have to pay them nearly as much? Like, what do you think, guys? Should we, do you guys want to continue with this, or should we move on to WoW, or what do you guys want to do? I'm game for either, but I might, before I move over to WoW, I'll probably take a short break. No need for any of those entry-level jobs? Talking about poverty is depressing. You lucked out. I'm not suggesting that I'm rich brain stuff, but I'm not living paycheck to paycheck. Like I'm doing okay. But even my job, like I'm, you know, there's always talk of them downsizing, laying people off, budget, budget shit. So, I mean, it's in a lot of industries. I would not be surprised if I got laid off at some point. Maybe it'd be full-time streamer Alligator again. I don't do blow, dude. I don't do blow. General manager wanted your $60 in his pocket. Yeah, it's gonna be interesting because I wonder if governments are gonna have to step in and say no. You are laying too many people off. I don't even know if they could, to be honest. Because, in the spirit of capitalism, why should companies not be able to do that, right? How is any true capitalist going to say, oh, wait, no, it's the companies, the companies they've got a right to make money. They've got a right to be more profitable. Excuse me. That's why we were having this discussion a couple days ago about the share price of Tesla. And people are like, oh, Tesla's, their share price is going to crash, blah, blah, blah. Tesla's share price is not propped up because of their cars. It's propped up because of their data collection services and robotics. Like, that's why their stock price is so high. Revolution, civil war in America soon? Let's hope not. That plus their shit with the cars. I mean, their cars are not as good as other cars for sure. But their stock price is not based on what their automotive sales are. That's why when they've announced like several dips in their sales over the last few months, like several, and not just because Elon Musk went on some crazy rant, but their stock price didn't really like. Here, let's look at it. Actually, we've got it here. Tesla. So I mean, over the last month, it's relatively unchanged, and they've had a lot of bad news reports that have come out. This is the big dip right here when Elon Musk basically went haywire and people were like, what the fuck is going on here? But it's since recovered a little bit. But overall, over the last year, it's up a little bit. Like their stock prices, a lot of it has nothing to do with their Tesla sales. And I think I read today that Norway, I think it was like 95% of their car sales over the last year have been electric, full-on electric vehicles. And you always have these people that are like, hey, Brigitte, how are you doing? How is Brigitte doing, actually? Give me an update. But 95, let me get an exact number. What per? It was high. 89%. 89% of all new cars sold last year, in the last year, are electric, full electric vehicles. And you have people that are actually trying to suggest that we cannot possibly generate enough energy or electricity. Yes, we can. That's just the narrative that the oil and gas industry wants you to believe, and it's bullshit. I promise he is not. Oh, that I'm not AI. Yes, I am not AI, Brigitte. I am actually a real person. We were debating whether or not I was real or just AI generated, like not long ago. Okay with your cancer, but 4 days ago I fell and broke your shoulder. Oh, Jesus, Brigitte. That must hurt. That must hurt. Brigitte is a longtime viewer of mine, chat. Longtime viewer of mine. But she's, it's a clone. That's right, I'm a clone. Yeah, Brigitte has been, battling some, cancer the last number of years. So, but she's still hanging in there. I hope Elon doesn't make his own party. He needs to just focus on his companies. Yes, I think he's kind of learned that. What is this you're sending me, Kush? What is this? Is this a porno? What is that? Yeah, but what's the video of? Like, what am I watching here? Oh, I've seen that before. How they they leverage against their stocks from the banks or something like that, right? Pushed. It's actually smart. Yeah, for those of you that don't understand, I'll explain the video. A lot of these super rich guys, they're not actually taking a salary to get taxed. They basically borrow the money from the banks. And that's not taxed. I don't know I'd have to watch the video again, but basically they're having the banks give them a tax-free salary. Ford never give up. That's right. Ford never give up. All right, should we do this? Should I just switch over to WoW then? I think we've covered the big tax bill. There's not really much else going on. We can sit here and debate how useless the kids of this generation are and how they're not hardworking. You know, but and we've talked about AI and how AI is just kind of gonna Druid PvP. Let's go. All right. Let me take a short break then. I want to go and refill my drinks and stuff like that. And for those of you that watched on, I don't know what's going on with YouTube, but for some reason, it's not showing up on my YouTube as that I'm live. I don't know why. So I almost feel like just restarting everything and seeing if that fixes the problem. Should I just restart the stream? That might actually be a better option. And then we just see everyone back. Actually, no. I'm going to just switch over. I'll just switch. Let's play WoW. I'm going to, but I'm going to turn the YouTube stream off and then restart it manually. But yeah, Kick's not working. Like you know what? I am going to restart the stream. I want to actually see what the problem is. So I'll be back in like 15, 20 minutes or something like that. I'm going to play around with a couple of things. See if I can get it working again. Because for some reason, it's not showing up as that I'm live on YouTube, and in the kick stream didn't turn on. So if I'm going to switch over now, I'm just going to hard restart everything and see, and attach my my YouTube kick, my multi-stream